And now, weighing in out of the blue corner, Josh the Punk Thomson. 100% agree. And on the other mic, he weighs in from the red corner, Big John McCarthy.
I am the punk because I've learned from the best, my man Josh Thomson, and he will tell you how to be the supreme punk. And I can't
keep showering me with praise. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. No cameras. No cameras.
Do me a favor.
No pictures.
Go ahead and paint that red stripe in your hair again. My man, what's up?
I'm afraid not, my man. Oh, it was fun while it lasted. It was fun while it lasted.
How many different colors? I remember the red. I remember a blue and orange.
No, you know what it was?
It was a blue. It was blue with orange hair.
No, the blue, the blue was never blue. It was actually purple that faded the blue.
Well, then it was blue.
Yeah, but it was.
I don't give a shit what it was intended to be. It's what it was.
It was supposed to be blue. Yeah, so it was. I'm sorry. It was supposed to be purple. That was like a burgundy color I tried for one fight. That was my first title defense, and then that one was purple, orange, and blonde with the black all around.
What was it that made you say
that was the first one there?
I'm gonna put a stripe on my head of a different color.
Punk,
why?
Punk the skunk the punk.
Punk the
skunk.
It was
whatever.
Skunk, punk.
That was my first one. The first one over here on the far right. That was the first one. And
that was the first one?
Yeah, that was the one. I dyed it all black. And then I put the blonde piece in the front because I had just left my bangs a little bit longer. And then I put a blonde strip in the back a little bit, just a small little blonde strip in the back. I don't know. For some reason, I just wanted to change it up. I always had I was always the kid on the way I am now. I was always pretty clean cut. You know, I had the long hair for a while. It was all shaved underneath, and I pulled it up into a big ponytail to play soccer and wrestle for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then finally I just snipped it and I couldn't handle long hair, man. It just drove me fucking crazy. I tried though. Couldn't do it.
It's good to know you were focused on your career.
No, that was when I was wrestling in high school. Fucking sissy. Shut up, fucking fake ass Eminem. I've seen those old pictures. Don't make me fucking sell you out.
Woman.
Don't make me sell you out. I'll go through your fucking Instagram and pull up those old ass Eminem photos. Fucking dumbass, this guy. You can believe this guy.
Dave, did you bleach your hair blonde?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh
man,
dude.
He's got photos of him with like a hoodie on, trying to act all tough and hard, and in the background he's got fucking Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage on his fucking wall. Those little stretch. What are those little stretchy WWE guys? Remember the little WWE pillows, the pillows? Yeah, that was Dave. He had all those guys. Right, Dave, you had those, didn't you?
You had what?
You did. I know you fucking did. Did you used to buy those the fucking ice creams with like the shitty ass what was it, the cookie on the outside? Oh my God.
I don't know what that is.
The WWE cookies,
ice cream bars?
The WWE ice cream bars.
Before my time.
That was before your time. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of things before Dave's time.
John, we've got a fucking fantastic show today, man. We also got a special guest, man. We're gonna be light. There it is.
There it is. Look at that bad boy.
Gosh.
Holy shit.
Jeez.
Man, what happened to your arms? Did you have some kind of disease?
Yeah, where like no muscle was able to grow. It looked like you had a neck injury and your arms atrophied.
Yeah, exactly.
You know how they used to say,
hell, at least I broke my neck to get arms. My arms were twice that size and I had that neck injury.
In Scotland, instead of saying snap into a Slim Jim, they'd say slap into a podcast, dude.
Man, those
I was
things.
talking about First off, I want to apologize, Josh. I called you buggy whip arms.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's Dave.
It is this guy.
It's like a
fucking little noodles. What are you gonna do with those
little buggy whip, man?
Jeez, little twiggies.
Oh my God.
I've already locked my wife down. I don't need to worry about these stuff.
Oh no,
it's all good now. Locked in.
Well, I mean,
all right. Well, we have some fights to talk about. You know, we'll just get to the fights here, but we do have a great show for people.
Yeah.
We have a special guest, and we'll talk about him in just a little bit. But we do have Tyson Fury taking on Francis Ngannou in Saudi Arabia, November 28th, 2023. Josh, could it happen? Could it be that the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing, the linear heavyweight champion, gets upset, knocked out by an MMA fighter in Francis Ngannou?
I'm not going to go that far. But I am going to give Francis Ngannou the love that he deserves. I am. And I'm going to be honest. The fact that Tyson Fury has already booked another fight gives me a little bit of a weird feeling. And it gives me like those little tingles on the bottom of my nutsack. It kind of gives me those little tingles, like in the taint kind of area. It makes me feel like I know you're overlooking them. I knew that, but you already went and booked another fight. Like, are you kind of just easing into your training camp for that next fight? And maybe he's looking at it like it's just part of his training camp. And that's my problem. My problem is like you're not peaking then at the right time. You're not actually getting ready for what this guy does specifically versus the next guy who doesn't do anything like this guy that you're scheduled to fight.
Yep.
They're different fighters. And so what are you doing for this fight that's getting you mentally prepared and physically prepared for this guy? And then knowing that what you're preparing for next fight is not even the same type of fight. Completely different fight. Okay. Now, Tyson Fury seems like he fights very similar every single fight. He sticks and moves, utilizes jabs, plays a little bit of rope-a-dope. You know, he can move. He's got great head movement, got great footwork.
He can box.
He can really box. But within that 3-round period, I mean, I'm going to say that Francis Ngannou's got a shot. Look, none of us have seen him box, like in an actual boxing ring. Now, look, if we're going to talk about practice, I'm sure you've seen him box in the, inside, in practice or whatever at the gym, at Randy Couture's gym and what other gyms you've been at that have seen him perform. It's not the same. It's not the same. And we've seen him box and spar with 16-ounce gloves. It's not the same. You're wearing 10-ounce gloves. 6 ounces is a lot. I mean, the UFC gloves are 4 ounces. That's a whole nother glove. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to count him out. And I get you and I are on the same page. I think Tyson Fury is the best boxer in boxing right now. He's definitely the must-watch TV. I love watching him, but it scares me a little bit. It doesn't scare me. It makes me believe that he is completely just washed his hands of, I'm moving on after this, not a big deal, whatever it takes. I'm going to be on to the next fight. And that doesn't scare me. I keep saying scare me, but it doesn't scare me. It puts my mind in a place where I think Francis got a shot. Francis is taking this serious. Francis understands, like, if I'm able to even just drop him, this puts me in another conversation for another big money fight. Maybe not against Tyson, but maybe against Anthony Joshua, maybe against, and that's millions again on top of it. He knows what's at stake. Francis does.
He does. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing as you. I'm going to say, first off, I love Francis Ngannou.
I hear a butt coming.
He is as classy. He's as classy an individual as I've ever been around as far as the way he conducts himself. He is a champion in the sport of MMA. He is everything that you'd want because he's classy. He's kind to people. You can't say anything bad about the guy. I love him. He don't stand a chance in this fight. Doesn't stand a chance. And I hate that part of it. I really do. I hate that part of it because I would love to see him do well. I just don't think he's going to even do well. He's going to have a hard time finding Tyson Fury. He's going to have a hard time landing anything of any substance against him because it's just, he's new at it. No matter, I don't care how many times he's fought in an MMA cage. He's new at boxing, and Tyson's not. If you took this and you switched it around, and I put Tyson in an MMA fight, at least the one thing with Tyson in an MMA fight is he's going to be uncomfortable. He's not sure. He's not confident. He's got all these unknowns in there with him. This is his world. He can sign another fight because he's got nothing to truly worry about. He's looking at a guy who's coming into his world that's never really fought high-level boxing. Yeah. He's done it in MMA, and he's got unbelievable power in MMA, but it's a different stance. It's a different style, everything. And unless you've done it, Josh, look, you've boxed, you've done MMA. Okay? They're different. Yeah. You know they're different. The way I stand is different. Everything's different. And I mean, again, I love Francis, and I hate to think that he's going to have as hard a time as he's going to have in that ring with Tyson Fury. It's a matter of how long Tyson wants the thing to go on. Now, Tyson doesn't have incredible power, but he puts a lot of volume on, and that volume starts to wear you out. And as good a shape as Francis is in, he's going to be uncomfortable. And when you're uncomfortable, you're burning energy.
No.
And it wears you out fast.
I know I've told this story 1,000 times, and I'm going to just say it again because to back up what you're saying, I completely agree with you. I've sparred with Robert the Ghost Guerrero. I've sparred with guys like Ricardo Pinell, he was a 9-0 when I first started sparring with him. Now he's like 14-0 or something like that. Kid's a good boxer. He was my main sparring partner for some of my, like, towards my end of my UFC career. And it just is, there's levels. But with Ricardo, I could get away with things. Robert the Ghost Guerrero was at just a different level. He could come in squeaky, had to oil the wheels on it a little bit and still fuck me up. And that's kind of where we're at right now, where Tyson can do this shit in his sleep. So I agree with you on that. Like I said, though, John, when you are not mentally prepared.
It's that hope because I agree with you.
It's the mentally prepared. We've seen fighters countless times. I don't care how fucking good they are. They just think, I got this in the bag. And then they have a shitty ass fight. The fight ends up being, and this goes back to, I can go back to saying, hey, this is Rocky 1.
It's very similar as far as if you're going to look at, the scenario and what's there is Apollo Creed and Tyson Fury. They're the same. The guy's unbeaten and all this stuff. And you know what? He's this monster. And the one, Rocky's got a puncher's chance. Well, Ngannou's got a puncher's chance. I just don't think he does.
Yeah.
There's no way you can sit there and say what you want. Fury has been in there against guys that they can punch. Look, I've been there ringside with Deontay Wilder, and I've watched him fight multiple times. We're talking his right hand is as strong as anybody's right hand that you could find. George Foreman was another one, but he's been in there with Deontay 3 times. And the first time, he got put on his ass, and he was hurt, especially in that 12th round, but he got up. And so he's felt the guy that can hit. And I'm not saying that Francis can't, but landing that shot is not going to be easy for him. And I just, he's going to, the longer it goes, the more uncomfortable he's going to be in there. And it's just not going to go well.
Yeah, I look at it like he's going to have to make this it's going to have to make it a dirty, grimy fight. And I don't know if he's got the cardio to make it a dirty, grimy fight because he can't stand on the outside and try to box him. He's got to come in with 1 or 2 big shots, then maybe clinch.
He's got to step inside and throw big power.
And then if you recall, there was a guy that Fury fought. I can't remember his name. Was he the guy from South Africa? He ended up getting cut real bad over the eye.
Tyson that was in Vegas.
I thought it started with an M.
I can't.
Who did he fight?
Hold on. Stop right there. Otto Whalen.
Okay.
Otto Whalen.
So him, yeah. So Otto, he ended up getting, Tyson Fury ended up getting really nasty cut. But that was all done in an exchange against the ropes. And I kind of feel like that's where Ngannou's got to get him to go. Problem is with the footwork of Tyson Fury and the lack of footwork by Ngannou, it's going to make it harder for him to get there. Understanding how to not just cut the ring off, but keeping that pressure, the leg between the foot between the legs, the shoulder in the chest, the uppercuts coming over the top with some flurry shots, keeping that pressure against him. It's not the same as MMA. And I look at that. I'm like, and the other thing, if you are going to fight that style of fight, you're going to be exhausted. You are just, I'm sorry, but a 10-week, 4-month, it could be anything, 4-month, 5-month, 6-month. You couldn't get in good enough shape to do that.
It doesn't matter what kind of shape you're in because you're in shape. But the difference is everyone gets tired. It's who recuperates faster from being tired is the person that's in better shape. Okay? But you're going to be burning energy so quickly in this fight that you're going to feel like you're starting to drown. And once you've got that feeling that you're drowning, you are. It takes a big event for it to stop.
And that
I just don't see it.
That
happening.
feeling comes from, like you were saying, it's not relaxing. Tyson Fury can relax out there. He can relax out there for 12 rounds.
The whole time.
And so his shape, his footwork, his conditioning in terms of his mental capability of relaxing, as well as just dictating the pace of the fight. When you're the one that's the hammer, you feel like everything's going your way. It's when you're the nail, you feel like, man, I'm just sinking here. Just drowning in this misery right now. And so, like I said, I think Francis, I give him a little bit of a chance between rounds 1 and 3. And what I mean by that is we'll find out in that first 2-3 rounds how much Tyson Fury has really just kind of overlooked him. Be like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to get you in, get you out. Is he going to carry him at all? I mean, because he does have a puncher's chance. I would think he would try to get him out of there as fast as he could. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that are on my mind.
I want people to count how many punches Francis throws that miss.
Interesting. That's a good way to look at it. Because those when you miss, it takes it out of you a little bit more.
Yep.
Let me
Especially when you miss big.
Let me go another direction though. What do you think the pay-per-view numbers do?
On this one, I don't know. More than what Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul did.
I can tell you they didn't do 1.3 like they claimed.
1.3.
Jeez.
I honestly, I would say somewhere around 500,000. I really think
that much.
It's going to get it somewhere to that. Yeah, it's going to get somewhere around there. 450 to
lot.
5. There's boxing fans,
Yeah.
especially ones that want to see Tyson Fury beat up on an MMA guy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got to remember who Tyson is.
Yeah. You're not talking about a guy that, you're talking about the heavyweight champion. You can sit there and I know Usyk's got his belts. Mm-hmm. This is the guy that's the guy, if you're going to look and say, who's the heavyweight champion? Yeah. I love Alexander Usyk. This is the guy that's the champion.
I agree with you. I agree. All right. Yeah. I'm going to, yeah. I mean, now that I just reevaluated, I'm going to say around 6, maybe even 6.5, 650. I should say 650. Okay. I guess where does Francis go from here if he loses?
If he's smart?
Yeah.
Well, it's like you said, how well does he do? I'm just, if this was him against an average boxer, I'd have a lot more, hey, he's got a chance at this and that. Still he's going to be the underdog against the guy that he's fighting because, Tyson Fury is not just a big individual. Just like we said at the beginning, Josh, he can box. Yeah. And I mean, he can box. This is a guy that can put his hands down and lean back like Ali and move his head. And he's looking at you the whole time. And he is absolutely able to move his body, even though it's a big body. He moves it incredibly well, and he makes people miss all the time that are accustomed to landing their punches.
Yeah. And
so I just look at it, man, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel bad about it. But I think that Francis, if he's smart, hey, you took your shot in boxing. You took on the very best. What happens. Go back to the PFL. Let's start your career with PFL MMA. You have a couple of things going there. You have some fantastic talent that's in the heavyweight division there. We're going to see who is the champion of the PFL coming up in November 24th. He's got 2 good heavyweights there, both big guys, both strong guys, both with good stand-up. It'd be a great fight for either one against Ngannou.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I look at. I want to see I want to see how he looks. I mean, look, I was one of those guys that really believed that if Mayweather wanted to get Conor out of there, he would have got him out of there in rounds 2 and 3. We could say that all day long, but he didn't. So can't we? Because
you know why he didn't?
I think Mayweather bet on himself and carried him to where he went.
Yeah, he says,
knowing that Mayweather how he bets. I think that. But that kind of put, I think, people's, hey, MMA guys, they're not bad at boxing. They're not fantastic either. They're not great. No. But they're not to be overlooked.
There's no way, and this is what people don't seem to understand. You go to a boxing gym, if you work around boxers are working on a specific skill set, 2 tools, their hands. They work on throwing those hands from different angles and connecting at certain spacings, and the thing that they dictate that off of is their footwork. That's it. That's what they do. When you're talking about an MMA fighter, you're talking about he's working on his hands, he's working on his kicks, he's working on his elbows, he's working on his knees, he's working on his ground game, he's working on the submissions, he's working on the takedown. There's no way for an MMA fighter to have the same skill set with their hands as a boxer. One is working, on that skill set 100% of the time, while you're working on that skill set 20% of the time.
That's true. No, it's true. And I've recognized that after sparring with several top level boxers, you realize it's the way they move, the way they make you miss, the way they make you pay, the way they can just push your shoulder one direction and turn you around. I mean, they it is the Chris Tucker feel. Which one of y'all motherfuckers hit me? Yeah. It has that
off
feeling.
Angle you and fucking put you in a position where you can't hit them, and they're fucking blasting you.
Yep. I get it.
And it's the same for them. If you put them in an MMA match, it's the same thing. They're lost. Okay.
It wouldn't,
because you're fighting another man's game.
Yeah, if you just put them into a kickboxing match, now you add MMA, you add wrestling. Come on.
They would get destroyed. I mean, just kickboxing, it changes the range completely, and they're uncomfortable with that range.
All right. Well, when is that fight? It's this weekend coming up, correct?
November 28th.
Yeah. I'm
sorry, October 28th.
October.
Or November. October 28th.
It's coming up this
Saturday.
Saturday. It is Saturday.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah. Oh, right.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Joseph Parker against Seaman Keane, 10 rounds in the heavyweights. Man, look at heavyweight. All heavyweights.
Well, I mean, I wish him nothing. I wish Francis nothing but the best of luck. I mean, I'm a big Tyson Fury fan.
Absolutely.
Love watching him fight. He's kind of got me back into watching boxing. I enjoy watching him fight. He's fun.
Because he's fun.
He's fun, everything. So, all right.
He's crazy.
Well, that's going to wrap up our boxing talk. But hey, go to onlyfans.com/weighing-in, onlyfans.com/weighing-in. Subscribe to us over there. It is free. John's going to be posting pictures and videos of his Josh the Pork Thomson. And
he's getting big, baby. He's funny now, man. I'm telling you, you don't know. I'm going to save pictures for you. But the pork, now he sits, he lays down, and he rolls over.
When you tell him on command?
As long as you got a treat.
On command?
As long as you got a treat. Oh, yeah.
Got a treat.
On command. As long as you got a treat. If you don't have a treat, he'll sit there and look at you. He'll sit and look at you like, hey, you, where's my treat?
Yeah. I can't wait to come visit, man. Can't wait. Got to see who my son is. The pork. But go to weighing-in, go to onlyfans.com/weighing-in, onlyfans.com/weighing-in. Subscribe to us over there. It is free, guys. Extra content just for the fans, and subscribe to us over there. Thank you, guys. But John, we've got there's no UFC this weekend, so we're gonna just basically go right from Tyson Fury, and then we go right to this, which is bare knuckle fighting. And I think this fight. I'm sorry, man, but you're not gonna get me to take my eyes off this fucking fight. This is a fight. This is a real fight. You got two guys that are fighters, real fighters. These are like throwback fighters. These are the guys that they're not just doing it for the money. They do it for the love. I mean, obviously, and the money, but they love it.
Yeah, they do it for the money.
They love it though. They love it.
Yeah.
Eddie's. I'm a big fan of Eddie. I'm a big fan of Mike Perry. So this is a big fight.
First off, I'm a Mike Perry fan. I think he's been fantastic for bare knuckle fighting championship. He's done everything that you could ask of someone, and he puts it on the line. He'll take on anybody. Look at the people that he's fought there.
Yeah.
I mean, MVP, that's a pain in the ass to fight. Okay. Luke Rockhold, and no matter what, people are looking saying, well, Mike Perry was a welterweight and Luke Rockhold was a middleweight and Luke Rockhold was the world champion. And look at what happened.
Yep.
That's what happens when you put a dog in the fight. And Eddie Alvarez has been there and done it with everyone. And his fight against Chad Mendes, that was a battle. That was a dog fight too. I can't believe that these guys are now facing off against each other. I'm a little bit concerned with size a little bit now.
Yeah.
Mike Perry, I think, is going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker than Eddie, but obviously they're going to weigh in at the same thing. The other question is altitude. This is in Salt Lake City. That is up there about 4,500 feet, so the altitude can get to you. Where are you going to be training? Because it's only 2-minute rounds, but it's 5 2-minute rounds because Perry is the champ, and those 2-minute rounds are a sprint. It is not what people think. They think, oh, it's just a minute less. No, you are sprinting during those rounds. So this is a hell of a fight. Bkfc has put together an awesome card for this Salt Lake City, Bkfc 56 in Salt Lake City.
You know, John, Dave, can you look this up? Cowboy Cerrone and Eddie Alvarez that was Eddie's first fight in the UFC when he first came over, and he ended up losing that fight. Where was that at? Salt
Lake Kicks.
Where was that
Lake
at?
Kicks.
Salt.
Oh no,
not Salt Lake. It was in Colorado, right?
No, I think that was in Vegas.
I thought it was in altitude.
No, that was Melendez. They fought in
Melendez and Alvarez fought in Mexico City.
Mexico City.
That's right.
MGM Grand.
The MGM
Las
Grand.
Vegas.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. All right. Well, I just with Eddie finding altitude, I've seen Eddie can bite down on the mouthpiece and get after it, but I've noticed that people that generally have a fast-paced fight style, which Eddie does, they tend to have problems at altitude because they don't know how to fight conservatively. The way he fights, that's who they are, and they just push through. Well, you can't push through at altitude. There's nowhere to go. Your body just shuts down. Cain Velasquez, we just had him on. If you guys haven't seen his show, he talks about it. His body just shut down when he fought Verdum. Had nothing to do with he didn't feel like he was in shape. He was in phenomenal shape. Your body just can't take that type. It's a lack of oxygen. You're just not getting enough.
Yeah. You're not getting oxygen like you are accustomed to, and it feels like someone is squeezing your lungs.
Not just your lungs, everything about your body just goes down. Like it just starts depleting everything. And Eddie, I find he is a little bit older now, but I also find that he fights at a pace that's a dog in him. He just he doesn't know how to turn it off. And Mike Perry's the same way. But Mike Perry's also not been known for his fast pace, hard conditioning for later in the fights, like Eddie has been known. Eddie will go 5 rounds hard the whole time and push through. Now, Mike Perry, I know he's a dog. I know he can push through. I know he's got cardio, but you're not comparing the two things. The size also has me a little bit concerned. Eddie's never been a big guy. He's never been a big guy. And the fact is, he's also been known to deal with these guys. He fought at Bodog at 170. He was fighting there. Most of his career was early in his career was at 170. Then he went to 55 and had a ton of success.
That was, if you recall, that was his first loss though as a professional fighter against Nick Thomson at 170 because Nick Thomson was a big 170, and it was like these guys look like they're in different weight classes.
No,
and they were.
Yeah, they were. They were in different weight classes. But Eddie, when I look at his fight with Chad Mendes, he had some problems with Chad because of the speed. He doesn't have to have that. He's not going to have that same problem with Mike Perry. Mike Perry's fast, but he's not Chad Mendes fast. And that's where I think that Eddie's going to have a little bit more of an advantage. He'll be able to hit Mike and try to get in and out of the way. Eddie's got good footwork. He moves in, he jumps in. He can box. He can jump in, jump out. He can cut the corner. He can't afford to stand directly in front of Mike Perry because if he gets hit clean with 1 or 2 shots, he's in a lot of trouble.
But what happens with Eddie?
He gets ringed every time.
When he gets, and what does he do? He bites down, sets his feet, and starts winging shots.
John, that's why we fucking love him, man. That's why we love watching him fight.
I know it is. I absolutely agree. I mean, the guy he's one of my favorites, man. I have the guy, every time he fights, it's something to watch. And I think this fight against Mike Perry, I see ways for Eddie to win, and I see ways for Mike to win, and so that's what makes it a great match.
I just encourage you guys all to turn the volume off because Eddie's wife screams like crazy.
Because she does. You know what? God bless. You know what? It's so funny because I refereed a lot of Eddie's fights, and it was always you could hear her in that
quiet about
crowd, and you go. And you would like be moving around in the cage. You go, okay, I know Eddie's wife is right over there because I can hear her screaming right now. But you know what? God bless her, man. She supports her man. They've been together for freaking what, 20-something
long
years?
time, man. I think they got through.
Good for
3
him.
boys and 1 girl. I think is what they have.
I think so.
Something like that. Eddie's a great guy, man. Absolutely fantastic guy. We've had him on the podcast also. And if you guys go back and watch,
we're gonna have to have them. We're gonna have to have both of these men on before this fight
I'd like to
happens.
have that.
We're gonna do this. I got to get a hold of
December 2nd. All right, go ahead, Dave. What else you got?
All right, another fight announcement. We got Josh Emmett and Giga Chikadze for December 16th.
You know what, Josh? This is the problem. They're listening to the podcast and they're taking our advice because we already talked about what would be a good matchup in the featherweight division. I think Josh Emmett against Giga Chikadze. Yeah. Well, how great minds think alike.
It just made sense. I just want to know, is Josh Emmett at the age that he's at, is he going to utilize his wrestling?
That's the question.
I doubt it.
Because if he doesn't, the man from Georgia is going to win that fight.
Well, this is the way I look at it. When he fought Yair was hitting the leg kicks, hitting the head kicks, body kicks, all of these things. Giga's going to take a page out of that book.
Same thing.
He's going to do a very similar thing. So if Josh decides...
how do you keep him from doing it?
If Josh decides not to wrestle, he's going to end up in the same exact position he was against Yair Rodriguez.
Yair.
So it's going to be a problem. Yep. Now, power-wise, though, Giga's got to be careful. Giga's very hittable when he starts throwing.
Sure is.
He gets into those exchanges. He leaves himself out of position quite a bit. The spinning kicks, the side kicks, whatever it is, he leaves himself out of position quite a bit to be countered, especially if he misses. Now, you mix that in with some wrestling. Giga's got to be careful with some of these spinning kicks because you get into those spinning situations. It's easy to grab your back, lift and slam, or lift and take down, or just drag you to the ground. And that's not where he wants to be underneath Josh Emmett. We've seen Giga has a hard time getting up off the bottom. That's just the bottom line. He can't. He's not a. You would think from Georgia he'd have some wrestling.
He's not a submission threat.
He's not a submission threat, but he doesn't. You would think being from Georgia he'd have some wrestling. He's got maybe level 1 wrestling. He can stop the first takedown.
He went a different route.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, he's very talented, obviously on the feet. Fucking next level on the feet. Jeez, scary, nasty.
On the feet, he's good.
If you had to pick though, who are you gonna go with? Don't say, well, if he did this, I picked this guy. No, just say.
I'm going to be honest. I'm looking at age and everything. I'm going to go with Giga Chikadze in that fight.
All right, John, I'm going to do what I told you not to do. I'm going to say if Josh Emmett wrestles, he wins. All right,
you're right.
Next fight.
I think you're right. Yeah. That's his route to victory.
Yeah. What else?
So we'll see if he does it.
All right.
We have another fight here. So
Big John loves this fight. He wants.
I love this.
He loves this fight. Tell me what you think.
Look it. Brian Kelleher is a tough dude. Cody Garbrandt is a guy I love watching fight. He's had some hard times in some of his fights, but he was the bantamweight champion. He can absolutely get himself back into contention, and that's what he's fighting Kelleher for here. He needs to put on a good performance. And he's fighting a guy in Kelleher, tough dude. Let's see you put on a good performance.
Cody's proven that he can be not hittable when he chooses to use his speed to be defensive and use his footwork. He's fast. We know that. He possesses a lot of power. He just got to make sure that he's not biting down on the mouthpiece. He just needs to touch and go. And with his power, for such a small guy, the knockout will come. It'll come.
Yep.
Now, Brian Kelleher is very hittable. He's someone that is there to be hit, but he's also tough. He will take one shot, maybe two. Not sure by Cody Garbrandt, but he might be able to take two from some people. But it's not just the power in which Cody hits with. It's the fact that it gets there fast enough to where you don't see the first one land. And then the second one lands while you're rocked, and then that's what puts you to sleep. He's got the power. He's got all the ability Cody Garbrandt does. And Brian Kelleher's got to make this one of those grimy fights, try to get him into some exchanges and just try to catch him in one of those exchanges. We've seen Cody get carried away in the exchanges. And what he does, he loads up on the right hand. He lands a big shot. Then he comes back. He loads up with the same big right hand. Misses it or barely gets it. Loads up again, same right hand. Then you become predictable, and that's how you get caught. And that's what happened in a couple of his fights. And I look at this fight. I don't know if Brian Kelleher has that level in him, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out.
If you're Kelleher, you're looking saying, hey, it's a big name. This is a great fight for me to get a victory in. If I can get it, absolutely I'm going to take that fight.
Absolutely.
So I don't blame Kelleher for taking the fight. May the best man win, but Cody Garbrandt absolutely is going to be the favorite in that fight.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? We've had a lot of drama going on Twitter. And, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this drama with the illegal blows. The illegal blows. Apparently, there was illegal blows people wanted us to talk about in the Islam Makhachev fight to the back of Alexander Volkanovski's head. John, please educate these people that are out there.
The part that amazes me is they take what they have read and they put it down to what they think is the back of the head. Okay. What is illegal to the back of the head is not what a doctor is going to say is the back of the head. That is not illegal in MMA. When you're talking about, I saw people saying, that Makhachev kneed him to the head while he was down. Jesus Christ, man. You could take a still picture of anything and make it look like something. He did not knee him when he was down. If you're a Volkanovski fan, which I am, you got to look and say, we either make excuses for the fight or we say, hey, man, my guy lost and we move on. Okay? When we talk about the back of the head, when guys are in motion and think, Josh, let me ask you a question real quick. How easy is it for you to just target the exact place for your hand to hit while you're trying to finish somebody? Because I can go back and say that Josh Thomson hit Nate Diaz to the back of the head. You meant to, right?
No.
Okay.
No. John, when you're looking at this photo, it's a still photo, and now you have the hammer fist it looks like more to the top into the cranium, like right there on the top of the.
There was, I'll give it, there's that one.
Okay.
I think there is that one.
What it is.
But there's motion involved. Yeah. And so what the referee is saying is, don't hit the back of the head or watch the back of the head because he sees movement. And that way, if Islam comes back with a second shot in that exact place, then he'll do something about it. But the rule is no directed, understand the word, directed shots towards the back of the head. And when we talk about the back of the head, we're talking about a 1-inch strip to either side of center line from the crown of the head straight down the spine. Okay? That shot right there will make it look like, yes, that's the back of the head, and that's that one. But in a finishing sequence where there's motion, the referee's not going to stop it off of the one shot as a guy is moving and a guy is on top of them, moving, trying to hit him to end the fight. You're going to get this. It is part of the sport, and this is not something. If we took, and people are like, we should have a double champ in Alexander Volkanovski. God forbid we ever had someone stupid enough to do something like that.
Well,
okay?
Dave was ready to put an interim title around his waist. Fucking guy. John, we've seen this so many times. Like, look, I actually am kind of in the world of believing that he was kind of already out.
Yeah,
I mean, his head was just bobbling around. I mean, I would like to have seen the ref jump in actually a tiny bit earlier, but then I understand it is Volkanovski. He is the champion. You've got to let him go out on his shield. It's a shit situation, but I mean, you can't stop a fight like right there on that moment. Those type of things, you just can't do it. Just no way.
No, and if you could recall from this point here, all of a sudden Islam switches it because he starts to see, and he starts to switch his hand to come up towards anything landing, any part of my body touches that ear, it's legal. Okay, I can take my hand and put it almost to the back of that center line of the head and have my hand touch that ear. It's still legal. If it touches the ear in any fashion, it's legal.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what to tell people. You're trying to die on an island that you don't want to be on because you're going to lose. This is not a foul situation. This was the end of a fight situation, and it was done correctly.
Yeah. John, there's another foul with the Johnny Walker fight in the knee. And then I believe I saw something that was Aljo came out and said, like, how come this guy, or somebody came out and said, hey, Aljo won a title off of this. How come I didn't get it? I think it was Johnny Walker. And it's like, why are we not using these rules? Well, I said, like, Aljo was what, 3 rounds in?
4 rounds.
4 rounds into the fight, right? It was like in the third or fourth round. Yeah, fourth round. Yeah. That's why. Dumbass. Like whoever was, like, it got to the point where people are now they're finding any excuse. And like we talked with Rich Franklin, who's our guest on this show, but we talked with Rich, and fighters will find any reason to cheat. And it's not cheating. It's trying to skew the rules, trying to work around them. And I got really mad on the last show talking about Makhachev, and I think he's a fantastic fighter. But this whole Kappa squat, fingertips on the ground, and I even called Andy Foster because it was fucking bothering me so much. I was getting so mad about it. I'm like, I was just thinking about it in my head. I'm like, Andy, this type of stuff, we've got to stop it. We've got to stop. Like, we've got to stop.
Like we didn't try to stop it, and they just went right.
You guys
back
just aren't doing a very good job of it. Let me speak up for you guys, okay? Let me educate you.
Hey, you just keep going. Baby.
No, I'm
100% for you speaking up.
Then I think maybe you just need a little bit more backup, maybe some muscle. Okay, that's why you bring me in.
Dude, that's it right there.
I've got to the point though, John, where you see Jason Herzog is reffing that fight against Makhachev, and he sees that he's just dangling his hands around the mat, kind of playing the whole game, never with weight bearing. His hands are not weight bearing. He's not carrying any of his weight on there. It's just his fingertips. If your fingertips are on there and you're not putting any pressure on it, I should be able to nail the shit out of your face. Doesn't matter if you got two of them on there or not. Which is where, and I believe, and I really do believe that there will be a change in some sort of policy or rule system in this thing here. I wouldn't say it's going to come soon. It's going to take a long time, but the fighters will evolve and change the way that they fight. You know what I mean? To make this, because it's getting to the point where it's taken away now from the fight, and it's favoring the top level wrestlers. You can see, in that I'm not that I'm saying that they shouldn't be allowed to. It just, they have now learned to work around those rules so well that now it's giving them the clear advantage.
Yeah. Anytime someone, and when I was refereeing, I would do the thing of, when if you were fighting someone, Josh, and you were attempting to use technique to offensively, effectively damage your opponent, while your opponent was trying to use a rule, not technique, not skills and ability, but a rule to protect themselves, I was going to always lean towards your side, because you're playing the game. The other person is playing the game. They're trying to use not skill and technique. They're trying to use a specific rule set to keep themselves safe. That's not fighting. Yeah. That's not fighting. And so I look at, I actually saw, and I was a little bit discouraged. I saw Makhachev actually complaining, and I'm like, you had nothing to complain about in that fight, because in reality, he was complaining about the judges had given Tim Elliott was winning the fight.
Yeah, he was.
He had to get that finish, and I'm like, and what made you think that you were winning this fight? What made you think that you were doing so many great things that the judges were just crazy for going with Tim Elliott, who was doing a whole bunch of stuff to try to end the fight, to try to put you out? That's what they're looking for. It's not about who can play a game better.
Yeah.
And I look at it, and it's, at one point we went and tried to say, hey, you got to put both hands down, palms down, for you to be a down fighter. This is what happened with Gegard Mousasi and Chris Weidman. Weidman put his fingertips down. He didn't put his palms down. Gegard throws the knee. It was legal, and the whole thing happened where Weidman kind of acted hurt. And then the doctor said, well, he's hurt. He can't go on. And it was a TKO victory for Gegard. But we heard nothing but bad things from, the same as, we're just talking about Rich Franklin. We were talking to Rich Franklin about trying to change rules. And these people get so stuck on, well, a fighter's, you're telling a fighter not to protect themselves. You're telling them to put both hands on the ground. No, I'm not. I'm telling them, don't do that. I'm telling them, if you want to be a grounded fighter, put your knee to the ground and put both of your hands up to protect your face. Okay? I don't want the fighter to put their hand to the ground, but you're going to have to give them a rule that makes it to where they go, that's not going to work for me anymore. Yeah. And it's going to take something like that, or change the rule to where knees are allowed on the ground, because at this point in the sport, 29, almost 30 years in. We did have knees allowed on the ground at one point. We haven't had them for a long time, and something that they need to look at, because it's not something that, oh, you know what, you're going to allow knees to the head on the ground, everyone's going to get hurt. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
Okay, they're not.
They're not going to get hurt.
But will somebody? Yes,
absolutely.
Somebody will.
Somebody gets kneed to the head on on the feet, and they get fucking hurt there too.
Oh, I know. Oh, but see, that's the whole point. They look at that. That's okay, because now they're used to it. Yeah. When we started and I was going to court and all these things, do you know how many times I heard about, you're going to let someone get kneed to the face? Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And it's like they're used to defending against this. It's not an easy thing to do. Yeah. It's not this skill set that someone can just go and just, I can just go burp, done. It doesn't happen that way, and it wouldn't happen that way with knees to the head on the ground, but it would definitely change the ability for people to try to use positions that have the rule set backing them that they would never put themselves in if it wasn't there.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat myself, because you guys are going to listen to our interview with Rich Franklin here coming up. But I don't want to repeat myself, because as I just repeated myself, it is that the fighters will make it. They will make adjustments as time goes on.
Sure, they will.
But what I would
they have in every rule change.
Yeah. What I would like to say though is, realistically, I don't think if your hand is down, it should be a down opponent. Now that I'm thinking about this, it should be one knee down. That's it. If your knee is down, if your hands are up, if your hands are on the ground and your butt's in the air and no knees down, you're not a down guy. You're not down, because you can still do something from there actively, like we saw. He hit the peek out, went to the inside crotch and lift and took him down and got to the top position, right to the side choke. He used the technique where the person who's actually on the front headlock, they have nothing. They have an anaconda. They've got a pretty much a guillotine. They got a guillotine, a possible darce. They've got 2 or 3 items there to do. These guys on their hands and their feet, they have a lot of options there. They've got a lot of options. They continue to fight. They can arm drag. They can push by. They can peek out. They can shoot on. They can reshoot on the double. They can Iranian. They can do all sorts of stuff from that position, And none of them can be. You can't hit strikes from there. Nothing that can really damage you from that position.
No.
So there's got to be some adjustments, I think, in that rule, or just start allowing knees to the head, which you're going to see a lot more action in these fights. A lot more action, because these guys will not be playing that game anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, look, how many times we hear these people talk about, all these wrestlers are so boring. Well, then make more of a pitch than to have knees on the ground. If you make more of a pitch to have knees on the ground, these wrestlers won't be as boring. And I know Dave keeps telling us to go to this Rich Franklin interview, but I'm not going to do that just yet, because I need him to pull up the last couple things we talked about. Let's go, John.
Well, I was going to save them for the post, but you want to put them now?
You want to save it for the post? What post?
Well, I was going to the wrap up after the interview, but that's fine.
Oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's roll right to the interview. Go ahead, John. Take us away.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are lucky enough to have a guy who was the middleweight champion of the UFC, a guy who had an unbelievable MMA career. He was a math teacher. He was an MMA champion, and now he is part of one championship, our man, Rich Ace Franklin. Well, we're always talking about having a second part of your life, and we have got the prime example as our guest, a man who has been aces, Rich Ace Franklin. How are you doing, my man? It is good to see you. You haven't aged at all. I'm pissed off.
I don't know about all that. I'll tell you what, maybe I look a little okay here, There's a lot of stitches on this face too, trust me. But I'll tell you what, I feel it when I wake up in the morning after a long day of training. That is for sure.
I gotta say, you're looking a lot like Josh there with the glasses on and everything. It's like, what is going on here?
The further I drift away from my teaching career, the harder I try to make work to make myself look smart. There's not even any glass in these glasses. They're just frames.
Just frames. There you go. I got it.
Yeah.
You and I worked together at ONE FC for a while, cage side commentary, and you were more my boss than anything. But it was one of those things where we got to call some fights side by side. But I tell this story all the time. Man, you are someone you work out avidly. You are constantly at the gym. I remember being in Manila with you, had to hit the gym, Gold's Gym a couple times. You're always getting after it. You're always making sure you're taking care of yourself. I mean, has it gotten harder with all the traveling?
It is. I was telling John before we came on, this year I've done 9 trips over to Asia from here because I was living in Singapore for a while, working for one, but then I moved back. My home is Cincinnati. It always has been. And so I'm back on this side of the country, but I did 9 trips overseas for some of the commentary work that I've done. And door to door, from my front door to my hotel room door, is 33 hours. So it's a long travel, and I'm going through 12 time zones to get there. And you're just, when you land in a place, you're wrecked, the gyms are closed, you don't feel like working out. You got to do kind of workouts to get yourself back on, or get on track for that side of the planet. So it is quite difficult, but a couple of things that I do. Number one, and when I'm home or even when I'm on the road, like I'll minimize my time over there so that I can stay as close to this schedule as possible. And this about me, Josh. Like I am spot on, like clean with my nutrition. Like I keep my nutrition on point, and it helps tremendously. Not just with sleep, not adjusting to that side of the planet, but when you kind of get out of whack for a few days, like getting back on track, or if you miss some cardio or whatever, it's not like this huge detriment to your body. So that's probably a big key to staying in decent shape, particularly.
Does it help though that your coach actually is kind of around you, because like with Matt Hume being there, it kind of feels like your dad kind of looking over you if you guys go drinking or if you're out, just doing shit to your body, just being out late or eating like shit?
Well, you remember when we were out in Beijing? Do you
I
not?
do.
Okay, so anybody that's been out with me knows that I don't drink anyway, and so Matt and I, we get to train together on occasion, but it's the show over there has become so complex that we kind of run different schedules. So if we can catch breakfast here or there, that's kind of that's a treat for us anymore, because he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, and occasionally we'll get the roll, but it's very rare these days, because you just, like I said, I'm brought in, and I try to land, like I'll land on a Wednesday morning there and hit my first obligation. So I'll land at like 6 a.m. and hit my first obligation at 10, and I'm right on doing my stuff.
John and I have learned, I think, over the years of traveling, but for me, like I know we have fighter meetings for Bellator at, say 10 in the morning, whatever country we're in, 10 or 11. I try to land by 8:30, get to the hotel. It takes about an hour normally, and go right into drop your stuff at your hotel room, check in, get dropped off, maybe grab a quick bite, go right to the fighter meetings, and after that, maybe try to get a workout in before you go have dinner and whatever it is, in between. You want to get that session in between.
Yeah, I'll typically hit those fighter meetings. If I can get a workout in afterwards, I might do that. But usually by the time I hit that, like those my meetings with the fighters, particularly for commentary, that'll start at 10 in the morning. It'll last till say 3 in the afternoon. I grab a bite to eat, a quick workout, and by 4 or 5 o'clock, like I'm hitting the bed, because I'll be back awake again at 2 in the morning, and because it keeps me on this side of the planet. And since I'm only there for 4.5 days, it's just, for me personally, it's the best way to not have to readjust when I get back home.
I haven't had that problem. Like what happens is if I just go right to midnight and I sleep and I try to just get onto their schedule, but when I get back, I feel like it's so much easier for me to acclimate back to the U.S. time.
Well, see, I mean, I kind of run a double whammy, because like with this event that we have coming up, like the One Fight Night 16, it's on November 4th in Thailand, but our event will start at say 7:30 in the morning. So, my call time to show up is typically like 5:15 in the morning. So my wake up time is, call it 4 a.m. or whatever. So if I'm not going to bed till midnight, like a full night of sleep to me is 7 or 8 in the morning the next day. So I'm like, no, I'll just keep myself backed up so that I'm waking up at that time, because we broadcast here Friday nights, obviously.
I forgot that. Like, you guys are still on your guys' schedule to entertain here though at our times versus we're on East Coast prime time, so we have to accommodate to those time zones. So it's the closer I can keep myself to basically commentating at East Coast prime time, the better off I am. So if I can go to bed at 5 in the evening or 6 in the evening and wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, then I'm basically keeping myself on track the whole week anyway. And it's easier to adjust when I get back, because it's, like I said, it's 12 time zones, man. It's, that's about the best pro tip I can give to anybody that has to travel internationally. But it only works for short periods of time. If you're there 5 days or longer, like say longer than 5 days, then your body will automatically start resetting, and then you're just sunk when you get back anyway.
Rich, I kind of look at you, and you and I have experienced the same thing. I've had 3 careers. You've had 3 careers. You were a full-time math teacher. You became a professional fighter, and now you are the vice president of one of the biggest organizations there is for MMA, also grappling and Muay Thai out there in the one organization. How have you managed all of that?
Well, I mean, you do one thing at a time, right? When I was teaching,
they all crossed over.
In
fact, we were doing a commercial, and you were teaching math to one of the kids there.
Okay, well, yeah, that's right. When we did that Tundra commercial, but that's a skill set that I don't lose. Now, granted, the further I get away from teaching, the rustier I am. Like I had a friend of mine that called me up. He was in like third quarter of college calc, and he's like, "Can you help me with this?" I was like, "Bro, give me about an hour and 15 minutes to kind of refresh my memory and study." Literally, and I don't know how, but I was able to figure some stuff out. But the further you get from that, the more you lose that skill, because it's like everything else. The less kicks I throw, the worse my kicks are going to be. Exactly. So, I mean, the whole time I was in college, obviously I was training. Oftentimes when people look at my career, the way that it was marketed or whatever, or it just wasn't explained properly, that people thought that one day I was teaching and then one day I just jumped in the octagon like, voila, here I am. And it obviously didn't work that way. I entered martial arts when I was in high school, and then I saw the first UFC, which was about the year that I graduated. And from there, the traditional martial arts that I was doing quickly morphed, because for me, it was just all about self-defense. So all that training I was doing during college and all during my teaching career, which was basically a 5-year career. And then when I got to that last year, I thought like, okay, maybe I can pursue this full time, because I'd had, I don't know, a dozen professional fights at lower level, obviously. And so then the goal was to take the right fights that during that year and the subsequent year to set me up where I was being noticed by obviously the largest organization in the world. And so that ended up paying off. But obviously, working for an organization like One Championship post-fight makes sense, because I've built equity in this industry. I mean, we all have, right? And so with that comes a lot of knowledge. And you know me, John, anytime you've worked with me, it's like I'm a student of the game. And it doesn't matter. Whatever game I'm in, I'm a student of that game, which is why it seems so crazy that I can do something like mathematics one year of my life and then fighting, which seem diametrically opposed to each other. But it's like, whatever it is that I'm going to do, I head into full bore. So, for example, when I did like The Ultimate Fighter, I can remember just hanging out in the production room and asking tons of questions about how things worked. And when I'm around the UFC events, I was like, when they were having weigh-ins, like watching how the medicals were performed for no other reason than I'm just a curious individual. And so it's that knowledge that kind of paid off for me in my post-fight career with One Championship, because not only did I bring my, the integrity and my reputation to that organization, but I also brought that IP in as well, which helped early on with a lot of things. But I mean, I've done so many different jobs for this company that within One Championship alone, you could probably say I've had like 4 or 5 different careers.
How long did your teaching career overlap with your fighting career?
My entire fighting career. My first amateur match was in 1998, and then I started, fighting professionally shortly thereafter. And so my first teaching year was in 1998, but then I quit teaching full time in 2002. But I was teaching part time in an at-risk program all the way up until about 2 weeks before my title fight with Evan Tanner, after the Ken Shamrock fight. Because my students, the only fighter that the students knew at that time, because this was pre-mainstream MMA, like it was right on that cusp. But all my students knew who Ken Shamrock was, so they would always ask me, like, "You think you could beat Ken Shamrock?" Because he'd done some WWE wrestling, and I was like, absolutely. And then suddenly I'm fighting Ken on the season 1,
the first Ultimate Fighter finale.
And I was like, and then suddenly I was like, and I was still teaching in an at-risk program at the time, and I was like, oh my Lord, I'm gonna have to put my money where my mouth is. Like I've been running my mouth, so I better live up to this one.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I just wanted to know how long, because people don't realize in that era, which you and I were kind of part of, you were more on the latter end of where I was just coming up at that time in the UFC. But in that process for that time frame, it really was, we had to have full-time jobs. we were in this sport for the love of it. And people they can't wrap their head kind of around it now. You hear a lot of the millennials now talk like our producer podcast, Dave. Oh, I could have done it. I could have done this. But it's like, no, we really had. I was doing construction during the day, or I was, doing roofing at the time, sometimes during the summer while I was training. So I'd, run in the morning, do the work, and then go back and then run again at night and then train at night. We wouldn't leave the gym until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, knowing that we had a fight coming up.
Absolutely.
So it's just a different era, but a lot of the new fans can't wrap their head around the fact that you're a professional fighter. You shouldn't be fighting. You should be making millions. Wasn't like that.
Yeah, there was times. Yeah, there was times when, for example, I would fight on a Saturday. I would get out of school on a Friday at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, have my friends meet me, just park a car at the school parking lot, and we would drive up to Iowa, for example, because Monty was managing me, and I would drive up to Davenport, have a fight on a Saturday night, get there late on a Friday, weigh in, fight Saturday, and then come back to class on Monday on crutches with a twisted ankle and a black eye. Like, it was common practice for me back then. And you got to, if you rewind yourself back to that 2002 timeframe, this is when John McCain called MMA human cockfighting, right? Like, it didn't have the best reputation, but at my school, the administration was super supportive. The parents didn't have an issue with it. Actually, most of the parents of the kids that I taught, when we had parent-teacher conference nights, like, the average turnout for a room would be 25 to 30%, and my classes were typically like 80 to 90% of the parents would show up because they wanted to meet me, because their kids are going home talking about this professional wrestler, kickboxer, whatever. They didn't even know what the sport was back then. They didn't know. So that was my life.
That's a big deal for you to think the education system, or what would you call them? The principal and the staff would allow, like, administration would allow you to come in with black eyes, busted lips, and like, you're teaching their kids, like, what did you do over the weekend? And you have to explain. But the thing is, it's kind of educating those young kids. Like, look, I can still fight and control my temper and take care of myself, and I can still make money on the side. This is still a sport, and just getting it at a young age, being able to educate them at a young age was very important.
Yeah, they had more of a problem with me wearing things like flip-flops while I was teaching, because that was unprofessional. I'm not joking. I got pulled into the principal's office one time for wearing flip-flops to school. I am not kidding. And I remember saying to the principal, I was like, so you're telling me I'm going to wreck these kids' lives by wearing flip-flops while I'm teaching? Like, dead serious. But no, they were super supportive.
I wish my math teacher wore flip-flops.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you can, as a strong, I mean, like, high schools and the teaching like educators, they need good, strong male role models in the school. Like, it's a needed thing. So when you have a good, strong male role model like myself teaching your high school kids, like, the school knows what they have. I'm a person that takes care of 99% of my problems in class. Like, I'm not sending kids to the principal's office for arguing or whatever. It's like, I approach this like, what you guys are arguing in my classroom? Oh, well, we're going to settle this right now. Like, let me just, take my fake glasses off type of thing. So these actually really do have lenses.
It seems just fitting that back then they were having problems with you wearing, flip-flops in class, but then now we're allowing hoodies and shorts and flip-flops on the House floor. I think is what we're allowing now in Congress, which is lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, it just goes to show you that you don't need to wear a suit and tie to get a high-paying job or be uber successful.
Not at all. I mean, John, are we going to look back on his career? Are we going to go over this?
That's Rich. Do you want to go back on your career a little bit? We can talk quickly on it. You had a fantastic career. Let's be honest.
That's an abbreviated version of it. Yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, look, you came into the UFC. You were on fire for a while there. You got your title shot against Evan Tanner, who had won the title against. It was a vacant title. Beat David Terrell. Yeah, he got the title, and then you came in and you took it right away from him. Mm-hmm. When you won that title, what did that mean to you, or was it almost like, hell, what am I doing here? Because you did beat Ken Shamrock. Let's make that clear. You did win that, even though no one remembers that fight. I hate to say it.
I know it got erased by
Bonner
and Griffith Forrest. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But you did beat Ken Shamrock, but then you took that title, and you had an amazing career. You really did. Was winning the championship the highlight?
No, not at all.
Okay, actually, that's what I want to know.
Okay, so like the highlight of my career is way more personal than winning a championship. I mean, having that belt wrapped around your waist is it's a very cool feeling, and knowing that the hard work that you've done paid off to the point where you reach the pinnacle of something, to be considered the best in the world at what it is that you do. Like, very few people can claim that in the world.
That's
Even
right.
if it's for a short period of time. It's like people can say, oh, I'm really good at this, or I'm ranked in the top or whatever, but very few people can say I am the absolute best at what it is I do. But that's pale in comparison, because, going back to the discussion we had before about the status of MMA in the 2002 era, and we did it for the love of the sport and the thought of actually making a living doing this. When I think back now at this age of myself, who decided to quit a job teaching. Now, keep in mind that I was my father's only son to graduate from college. And my dad, who barely graduated high school, went back to university himself to become a nurse. And so he and I actually graduated from the University of Cincinnati basically the same year.
Oh,
and
that's
so
awesome.
he highly valued education. And then so when I basically, after 4 years of teaching, or at the 5 years, including what I did in my schooling, said, hey, Dad, listen, I'm going to pursue MMA as a career. Like, he saw me just throwing away my education. He's like, you're going to just throw away your education like that? And I swear, I think my dad wanted to. Yeah, but he wanted to punch me that day. Like, in his mind, it was like I was throwing everything away. And so, the thought of like how naive I was, which is a beautiful thing, because you have to take these leaps of faith in life if you're going to accomplish something great, And it's like, I had faith in myself. I had faith in God. I had faith that things were going to work out in some way, shape, or form or another. And so I decided to do this. And looking back now, the older version of myself, you get a little bit more conservative. It's like, man, that actually was a crazy decision. But the highlight of my career is when I fast forward, my dad came to Vegas to watch me defend my title. And we sat down. I remember I was eating ice chips because I was cutting weight, and he was eating, and it was me and him and his girlfriend, and we had dinner. And I just remember my dad looked at me and he said, hey man, he goes, you know what? I'm really proud of you for the decisions that you made in life to pursue your dreams, even when I was doubtful that you might actually accomplish something great here. He's like, what you've done is more than amazing. And my father's pride in me, like, way outweighs any belt, any victory, any retribution of a loss, like any of that kind of stuff in my career. Like, that moment sticks out to me more than anything. But if I'm talking about fights, I could go down a different rabbit hole. And probably my favorite fight of my career, the biggest highlight moment, was my Luter fight. And because
really, Travis Luter.
Yep. Yeah. Cause it's my worst winning performance. And like, I mean, John, you refereed my Nate Corey fight. So, like, I was in control of that match from start to finish.
Yep.
And I got a highlight reel knockout. And not that, Nate was game, man. I mean, he was a tough fighter too. And it's easy to look at fights like that and be like, oh, that was great. Or you can talk about like breaking my arm in the Chuck fight or breaking my hand in the Loazo fight. But the Luter fight was like a quicksand fight. It was one of those fights where I was training with Hume for this. He prepped me for the fight. We laid out a game plan. He had the game plan nailed to a T. We did all the drills we needed to do, and Luter executed exactly the way that he predicted. Exactly. And in the fight, like, it's like the first puzzle came my way and I failed. And then he did the next thing and I failed. And I failed like 5 times on all the drills that we were doing. It's like I had the solutions, but I wasn't executing. And it got to the point where Luter had mounted me. And I mean, even in camp, Matt, he looked at me and he said, look, if he mounts you, the fight's over. Like, don't get mounted. And so I had this moment where I mentally broke in that match. And it just for this moment, like, I was like, oh my God, I've lost this fight. And then I was like, no, wait a minute. Absolutely not. And then I fed him the arm and did that hitchhiker escape and came out. And then, of course, after that, like, even on my feet, when like he mentally broke at that point. But once I got back to my feet, then I was just head hunting, because that was the biggest knockout bonus that the UFC had announced at the time. So I was like, I was just doing everything I could to try to get that knockout bonus. And I just looked horrible start to finish in that fight. But it was a winning fight, and it taught me a lot about what I was personally made of. And so, when I look back at my career, I look at like these different aspects that other people, they won't see, they don't know because they haven't walked a mile in my shoes, kind of thing.
No, I have a very similar breakdown to that whole thing. I mean, like, my family, same way. They just were like, hey, like, they constantly were telling me, like, what are you doing with your life? You have an education. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, this is stupid. Like, you're wasting time. You should be a plumber. You should be an electrician. You should join the union. Great benefits, great pensions, all these things. And I was like, no, I just want to keep trying this. I'm literally just sleeping on Bob Cook's couch, for a while until the two of us got a place together. There's that. And then, like you said, stages of your career, fights that stood out to you. For me, it was the Hermes Franca fight. I got dropped in that fight in the third round, came back, was able to win the third round, kind of won the first two. It's like, those are the moments. Sure, the belt is great, but it sits, like, if we didn't have this podcast, it would literally be in my closet probably, but now it's back behind me. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things.
I don't even have an ego wall.
Yeah.
I have two pictures hanging in my house. My belts are in my safe. They're not displayed anywhere. And I have two pictures hanging in my house. One is a before and after picture of my Jorge Rivera fight. And like, that was a fight where, that was the first fight I had in my career where I was like, this is what it feels like to be a professional fighter, because he beat the crap out of me, man. Like, I had hematomas all over my eye was swelled shut, stitches I needed. And then the other one I have is a nice panoramic of Nationwide Arena in Columbus when I fought and won in my home state one time, and it was a sold out crowd and we set a record. But other than those two photos, like, there's nothing in this home that's remnant of me even being a professional. You would walk in and be like, whose house is this? I
feel like the gap is, things have changed from our era to, we took pride in that. These are the things that made us. Like, we fought demons. There was demons, I think, inside of us in that first generation or second and third generation of fighters, that, like, whatever the demons were inside, we looked for something more in terms of purpose. I feel like this generation of fighters that they're at now, it's all about the money. And don't get me wrong, we loved the money. We wanted the money back then. It just wasn't available.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't available.
I mean, listen, I wasn't going to complain if somebody added another decimal place on my paycheck. Like, that's I mean, come on, But at the end of the day, like, even at the end of my career, I lost my last fight against Kong, and I got to a point where I had told myself, like, I would never just fight for money. It had to be for the passion of the sport. And after I lost that fight, I knew that if I was going to make another title run, I was getting late in my 30s, and the amount of time that it would have taken me, I was like, I don't know that I have this much time left. And I had one more fight on my contract, and I'm like, I'm just going to be doing this for money. And that just didn't sit well with me, the idea of that. And so there had to be some honor and pride in what it was that I was doing. So yeah, just at that point in time, it took me a while to truly come to terms with the fact that it was time for me to retire, because from my last fight, it took me like another year and a half to actually publicly announce my retirement, although people knew by that time. But yeah, I was like, it's just a tough thing to do, man. That's your first love.
What made it so hard?
It's because, the funny thing is, like, it's like I win the title. I have the title. I lose the title to Anderson. I work my way back to Anderson, and it's the true Cinderella story. It's in my hometown, and I lose that title, shot the second time to him. And at that point, I'm in my mid 30s basically, and people are starting like, well, when are you going to retire? Like, you start getting asked these questions, and it's like, man, like, for example, when an NFL quarterback wins a Super Bowl, let's say somebody wins a Super Bowl in their late 20s and then they continue playing. Like, nobody says to them 3 or 4 years later, well, you won a Super Bowl 4 years ago, but you haven't won one since. So when are you going to retire? It's like, I still got 5 years of doing what I love the most in this sport and just enjoying competition. And so I was at that crossroads where I was like, man, I still enjoy this. And the thought of doing something else was just, it didn't sit well with me at that time, And in my mind now, I watch guys fight. It's crazy the way my mind works now at this age. I'll watch young guys fight, and I'll say to myself, like, man, why do people do this? Like, why? But then,
sounds like Josh.
Yeah, but we're exactly alike, I swear.
But at the same time, it's almost like when I watch the younger version of myself fight, it's as if I'm watching somebody different. While simultaneously, I'll tell myself, like, I could maybe do one or two more. It's like that whole juxtaposition in my head of mental thought is insane to me. Like, it makes me question my sanity. Truly,
I walk past the cage. I'm like, God, that just feels horrible and sounds.
He cringes. Also, a big kick or something to land, and he'll look and he'll go like, "Oh,
why are you guys doing that?"
Well, I'll tell you, it took me probably, I don't know, I want to say a good 4 years after my career to get to the point where I wasn't, where when I showed up to a fight, like when we're doing commentary, that I didn't feel like I was actually there competing, like the same kind of nerves and whatnot. yeah, it's like that stuff messes with you, man. And to this day, I do not like listening to my walkout song. Like it puts me in a completely different state of mind.
Really?
I won't listen to it. Yeah, if I'm in the gym working out, like I'll go over to the radio and turn that crap off. Yeah,
It's sparking that, it's kindling that little thing.
dude, man,
It's great.
yeah. Like the last thing I need is to be stuck in LA traffic, and then suddenly my walkout song comes on. That little guitar riff for those about to rock, man. I'm probably like falling down like Michael Douglas. Just I'll snap or something.
In your opinion, with all the people that you fought, because you fought a who's who, we're talking about, guys like Chuck Liddell, Anderson Silva, Vitor Belfort, all these guys that you faced, Ken Shamrock. If in looking back on your career, is there one that you say, this was the guy that I was most excited about? This is the guy that I thought was the best?
I would say the guy that I was most excited about and most scared of simultaneously was Vanderlei Silva.
Okay.
Like I to this day, I'm still trying to figure out if they call him the axe murderer because he's so mean that he murders axes, or if he uses axes to murder people.
I was there when he got his nickname, so I can tell you the story.
tell me the abbreviated version.
The abbreviated version is Frank Shamrock was supposed to fight John Lober, while Vitor Belfort was supposed to fight Jerry Bolander, if you remember him.
Yeah.
Jerry Bolander pulls out, and John Peretti is the matchmaker, and he brings in Vanderlei Silva. And Vitor Belfort is sitting there saying, I don't want to fight another Brazilian. I'll fight Frank. I'll fight anybody else. I don't want to fight. He didn't want to fight Vanderlei.
Yeah.
And it was, and Peretti says, no, this is, you're going to fight. He goes, I understand. He's a fucking axe murderer. And that's how he got his name. That was it.
I always thought it would be cool, like, because I watched Vanderlei and Pride and everything, and that stare down and
that's great.
Man, and I just was like, it would be so cool to stand across the ring from him until I was standing across the ring from him, and then I was like, in what world did I ever think this would be a good idea?
This would be a good idea. What the fuck?
Yeah,
that's great. John.
No, I think we need to transition into what is your latest career. Well, actually, yeah, it is your latest career because you were actually, didn't you invest in some yogurt company stuff?
Oh, I did actually. Yeah,
you had a couple of shops. Yeah,
I had a chain out in LA. Ran that for a little while. Man, like being passionate about nutrition and running F&B, food and beverage, if you don't know that, is two completely different things. And I got into that business, and I was like, man, what have I done? I am way outside of my wheelhouse, and so that was definitely tough. But it was a cool period of time. Like I did that for about 2.5 years, and then just kind of piecemeal sold the business off. And ended up taking the job with one championship.
I'm going to ask you one more question on your nutrition, though. You as Josh said, you have always been this guy that the way that you took care of yourself, the nutritional side of what you put in your body, but you always had that one day. It was almost like one day out of the week or one day out of every 2 weeks that you would just eat whatever the hell it was that you wanted. You still do that?
I don't anymore.
Okay.
And the reason why. There's a couple different reasons. Like I will have the occasional, call it like cheat meal, but back at that time, John, like I don't know if you'd ever been with me when I did one of those cheat meals, but it was no big deal for me to as an appetizer dust off a dozen Krispy Kremes. Like it was like, So and that was just me getting started. I'm like, oh wow, okay, now where are we going? But the reality is, like as you get older, you realize look, you can treat yourself like you can treat yourself like a Toyota Camry, or you can treat yourself like a Formula One car. And as an athlete, you are a Formula One race car, and you can't put 87 or 90, even 93 octane in an F1. It just doesn't work. And so when you're putting that kind of crap in there, like that's essentially what it is bad fuel. Now, if I want some junk, like for me, typically like I'll do like I like a good hamburger. Mm-hmm. And so, I'll get a good hamburger. It's not that bad. You get some like sourdough bread. I don't eat bread very often, but then it's like, I'll avoid things like traditional ketchups that have like high fructose corn syrup in it. I'll get organic ketchups. There's a couple brands on the market that taste like, I mean, when you grow up on like a Heinz 57, it's hard to replace that flavor.
It's sugar.
But there's a couple ketchups organic ketchups that are made with things like apple juice that actually taste like a standard ketchup. And so like a good burger. Or I remember I went to the movies one time and I was craving something sweet. Typically, like living overseas, coconut water, man, dude, like coconut. I could live off of fresh young Thai coconuts. They're amazing. So I could drink like 5 or 6 of those. Typically satiates my sugar craving. But if I want something that's like more desserty, say years ago when I was a kid, I would have gone to the movies and maybe I wanted like some peanut M&Ms. Like now I'll go and get like some dark chocolate covered almonds that are made with better quality ingredients. So I'm just not putting this crap in my system. And now it's not as much of a cheat meal as it is maybe like a refeed. And typically like I eat so much nutrient dense food that I don't really crave. Like if I'm craving sugar, like a handful of blueberries does it for me type of thing. But I eat so much food, nutrient dense, because I eat 6 times a day that I'm full. I'm always full. So I never have the room for like, I'd like some chips or something like that. And, but when I am, if I feel myself craving sugar, then I know that on that particular day, like I haven't had enough enough carbohydrates based on, say, my output ratio. If I've, spent some time in the gym, maybe I did legs that day, and then suddenly, mid-evening, I'm starting to really crave sugar. It's like, I haven't eaten enough carbs today. That's typically what my body is telling me. And at this age, I'm at a point where I'm so finely tuned with my body that when something's out of whack, and I know, like I've tried like blending the green drinks and doing that in the morning. I did that for years and years. I recently did the carnivore diet and I felt really great on that as well.
I love that.
But I've kind of landed in between because I know that the way that my body processes carbohydrates, for example, the way that it processes carbohydrates is like I need a certain amount of carbohydrates in my day. So the way my nutrition has landed is I'm taking in probably about 20 to 25% of my daily calories or carbs. And that works for me, personally. And I mean, we're all genetically different, unique in our own ways, and everybody processes things differently. So, for some people, a carnivore diet will work really well. And for other people, maybe a vegan diet or whatever, so it's like to each their own, but you just have to find really what works for you.
I agree. The yogurt shops, were those with Dan Caldwell? Okay.
No, this was on my own. And it wasn't a yogurt shop. It was a organic juice.
Got it.
Like a juice cafe. And we had like some quick grab and go food items and some bakery items.
Because Dan from Tap Out had got into the frozen yogurt shops too, into the LA area, kind of that area. So I was wondering if you guys were joining together because you were sponsored by them for the longest time.
Yeah. They were always great, man. I love the Tap Out guys are awesome, man. I was such good friends with them. Still am. Like if they called me for a favor today, I'd be like, what do you guys need? I actually just went back and forth with Dan on Instagram recently. So
good guy.
Yeah.
Really good guy.
You know what he's doing, right?
Dan?
Yep.
No, what's he doing?
He is he's now working for Bare Knuckle FC, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, he kind of does sponsor stuff and sets things up for him. So
it's a small world, this industry.
It really is.
Man, it's crazy.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get into
Let me ask you this. Let's talk about one and tell me what it is to you. What is it that makes ONE FC special and different in a way, but better than others?
Have you ever been to a show, John?
I have never been to one live. No, I've watched a ton on TV and different things, but never been to one.
Well, so I'm doing the work here in the U.S., so you're going to have to come watch one time.
Dude, the day you invite me is the day I'm coming.
Oh, well then, okay. First of all, consider it an open invitation, but I will make sure that I personally reach out to you before the next show so that you know that you're welcome to come. Josh has been there. He's been in the commentary booth with me, and they do a good job. Like
that was the one part that kind of had me like, yeah, I'm not too sure.
What a guy.
Listen, let me tell you, Josh, at the top of the hour here, Josh called me his boss at the time. And maybe technically I was in the company, but he's a way better commentator than me for sure at the time too. So,
thanks, I appreciate it.
I don't know how that dynamic worked, but, and he also had my back at that bar in Beijing, by the way, too. I know you remember that incident, Josh. So, but ONE Championship, like I like the formatting of the show. First of all, we briefly mentioned it earlier in this conversation about the different disciplines. Yep. We do special rules matches. kickboxing matches, Muay Thai matches, submission grappling matches, and then obviously our bread and butter MMA. And when Chatri first introduced this concept to the leadership team, I remember sitting on the phone on the opposite side of this conference call, and he's like, I want to put a Muay Thai match on the card. And I was just like, who comes to an MMA event to watch Muay Thai? Like that was my reaction. And then I watched the first event where we had a Muay Thai match, and I was like, yeah, it was pretty good, but I don't want to like it, so I'm not going to like it. And then I watched like the second one with a Muay Thai match, and I was like, damn it, this is actually a really good idea, you know? Yeah. And so it was like, I was born again, I guess, so to speak, with the concept. And so this idea of these different matches, we do a good job of matchmaking with, you know, Matt, he does an amazing job matchmaking these fighters. And so I think that dynamic of the different disciplines that we have brings a whole different element to the show. I think that the fans like it. I think there's a huge Muay Thai following in the U.S. more than people realize, because it's like watching MMA without any of the takedowns and better stand up, really, because we have our Muay Thai matches in the 4-ounce gloves.
Exactly. And who was the one that decided to do that? Was it Matt Hume? Because I love the Muay Thai matches with the MMA gloves. Both Josh and I do. We talk about it all the time.
I can't remember whose idea that was, so I'll take credit for it on this.
Good job. Way to go, Rich. I like that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Just, you know, it's just
brilliant.
I mean, you know, it's just one of the things I do in my spare time. You know, it's like I just come up with I have come up with some good ideas for the company. So, but yeah, I honestly don't know whose idea that was. But you know, talking about one, I think that one of the things you would notice, John, when you come to the event is that when we do our full scale events and we have the LED wall and the customized computerization, the walkouts that we do for each fighter, it adds a different level of entertainment to the event. And I think that is something that sets us apart. I think it shows on TV, but being actually in the stadium, you can really, really tell the difference there. And those are the things from an entertainment perspective. I'm talking about the martial art, the different martial arts and whatnot, that I really like. I think that our rule set, particularly the judging, I personally like the judging in the entirety. I like our judging system, our judging criteria. I think that the way the rules are set up pushes the athletes to press the action more with the yellow card system, and the judging criteria is set in a way to push the athlete to finish the fight. And I think that combined with the hydration protocols makes for athletes that are able to perform at 100% rather than, I mean, I've done this my whole fight, right? It's like there's an event in cutting weight and then getting back to weight, and this psychology of, oh, well, if I can outweigh my opponent by a few pounds, you know, I weighed in 3 pounds heavier than him after, you know, on fight day, then I have this advantage type of thing. And when you're fighting in the gym on a Tuesday night training, you don't think of a 2 or 3 pound advantage as really an advantage necessarily. And so the idea is that these athletes are competing at their full hydrated potential. So I think that it's a combination of all these things that make for a more exciting event.
John and I do talk about the Muay Thai all the time in terms of your guys' kickboxing. You guys started implementing boxing as well, but with the MMA gloves, which is, I believe, your last show had your guys' first time with the boxing with MMA gloves. Am I correct?
Well, it wasn't actually a boxing match because it was considered special.
That's
rules
what I was going to
striking
get into. What are the special rules on this?
Yeah, because basically, I mean, I guess you could say it was like a boxing match, but you were allowed the dirty box as well. So, you know, like clinch in the back of the head and work in that dirty on those inside combinations, you could do that. So it takes it out of the boxing category.
Now, my next question was you guys started moving over to the States. When you guys came over to the States, what hurdles did you guys have to get through, though, for you guys to be able to implement your rule system?
Well, I mean, we're still hurdling, you know. I have.
Do you wait before you go on? Do you feel like you guys are kind of like the beginnings of the UFC, like having to talk to every commission, having to deal with, you know, being, you know, these different types of rule structures that you guys are trying to get implemented? And you feel like that kind of?
Yeah, a little bit at times. And some of the commissions are open to it. Obviously, some of them are a bit more closed down. I think that if I'm just being quite honest here, politics play a role in some of these states.
You think?
Yeah, right. So, but here's what I find myself. I find myself in a parallel universe of where I was in 2003, 2004 with the UFC. I find myself in a situation where, back then the thought of punching someone on the ground was foreign to people, right? Remember this, John? Like, it's even ingrained. It's ingrained in our films. The fact that you can hit the ground and then follow up with somebody, like, even you watch an old John Wayne Western, as soon as somebody hits the ground, they're like, get up, boy. Right. Okay. And that's how it is.
The first time I met Lorenzo Fertitta was at UFC 21. They came to watch it because we were trying to get licensed and regulated in the state of Nevada. He was on the commission, and I go to dinner with him. And the first thing that he said is, I don't like seeing a guy get punched on the ground. And I said, look, I understand that. I said, but you need to understand, you like boxing and you're accustomed to what you see in movies. I said, John Wayne hits somebody, knocks him down. He doesn't go over there, jump and mount him and start pounding on him. He grabs him, picks him up, stands him back up, and pops him again. And he goes, yeah. And I go, that's not real fighting. That's the movies.
Yeah.
And that was, I swear to God, I was like, oh, we're in for a deep one on this one. But he ended up being the guy that bought the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. But see, now I'm in the same, like, this same system. Like, most of the discussions with the states that I talk to come down to knees to the head of a grounded opponent. Like, there are other rule differences, the hydration protocols. We have some restrictions on suplexes so that you can't throw a guy on his head, which is kind of the same as the spiking rule. But I mean, this is particularly like basically what I tell people when they were fighting for the Warrior Series that I was running years ago was that if you pick someone up, it is your responsibility to make sure they don't land on their head. And so, we have some other restrictions that make it safer. These things never become a problem. Our hydration protocols, some of the medical standards that we have typically go above and beyond those of the state requirements. Yeah. But it boils down to the knees of the head or ground opponent. And like, I've kind of made the argument that I believe wholeheartedly that I could land a knee with greater force, standing, plumb clinched, having someone bent over in the optimal position, pulling their face into my knee than I could if I was like in a half guard or side mounted on someone, or even in a north-south position. Because the moment you rear up with a knee or an elbow or anything from a striking position on the ground, you're pulling pressure off of your opponent. So anybody that has any experience grappling knows that you have to be quite careful when you are throwing these kinds of strikes. And so it's like, I'll make this argument. And when you look at the data in one championship, we've had over the entire history of this organization, we've had 20 fights that have finished with a combination that involved a knee to the head of a grounded opponent. Only 20 fights that have finished that way. Now, there are other combinations during the match that might land where a knee lands to the head of a ground opponent. But the whole point is that the data kind of shows that what ends up happening is that it pushes the action to a different location, that there aren't a ton of finishes out of, over 1,600 MMA matches at this point in time. And with that being said, the other thing that I pointed out is in the history of this organization, in the 12 years that we've been doing MMA matches, we haven't had one fighter that's lost a match that involved a combination that involved the knee to the head of a grounded opponent that had more than a standard 30 or 60-day medical suspension. And you can't say that about even legal techniques in any rule set. Kick to the face of a standing opponent, there's instances where it's led, and this is the only thing so far that has a 100% track record. So, that's kind of my argument for why I do not believe that this is nearly as dangerous as people think it is. But we're in this world where people see somebody get kneed, and it's like rewinding the clock to 2002, and somebody's watching somebody get punched on the ground. They're like, oh, I can't watch this. Well, now it's just normalized.
One of the things you're going to figure out, and this is what I went through with the early UFC, was you don't really have to fight reality. You have to fight perception.
100%.
Because see, when you talk about what these guys are thinking, they perceive something to be more dangerous. It doesn't mean that it's true, but it's their perception. And so their perception is reality to them, and it's the truth to them. And so now you've got to try to fight through that perception and get them to understand that maybe what the way you're looking at it might not be completely right. And you have to do that in a way that doesn't offend them. It's not 100%. An easy thing to do.
Look, I mean, I've been doing the same thing. The work you were doing is the same work I was doing because I was the poster boy for this. during my era, right? Oh, look, smart people do this too. This guy was a high school math teacher.
Yep.
And so that's why the UFC at the time used me to open up Germany, used me to open up Ireland in 2 markets, used me to open up Canada, used me to, like, I opened up tons of foreign markets for that particular reason, because I can speak well to the press on this particular subject matter. So I get it, man. And your perception is reality. That's
but I was on the phone yesterday with Andy Foster for about 45 minutes, just talking over a 10-8 round. But I also got into the knees and the head of the grounded opponent, and how these type of things can be changed and should be changed, because it does create more action. But just like in any sport, when you implement a new rule, let's just say we implement it. Well, we don't implement it next fight. We say, hey, we're going to start implementing this rule January 1st. That gives the fighters 4 months to start training for this, so they can be adjusted to how they can adapt to being kneed in the head. So they're not taking direct shots. It's no different than when they're on the feet, right? The knees to the head on the feet are legal, but guess what? We train those. We understand how to avoid them, how to keep our head and our posture up, all of these type of things to avoid that full-on pressure of the head being pulled down and in the knee, right into the knee. So I think if you were to pitch an argument to the commission, and after talking with Andy, he's not opposed to having knees to the head of a grounded opponent, but it's just we've got to figure out ways to get there, though, in terms of, like John said, perception is the way we shape that, is that these fighters we're not asking them to tomorrow fight with knees to the head of ground opponent. You say, look, just like any other technique, the NFL, the Major League Baseball, and the NBA all change rules every offseason. What do those fighters, what do those athletes do? They go to the gym and they figure out how to work around those rules. Athletes will always try to find a way to beat the rule system, whether it's sitting halfway in a crouch position to play the hand fingers on the game of a downed opponent or whatever it is. They're going to find ways to cheat the rules and work to their benefit. That's what we do. And so if you pitch that argument, it's like, look, we're not changing the rule next week. We're changing the rule January 1st or April 15th or whatever it is. It gives them time to train, gives them time to better prepare for it. So there is even less of the knockouts that which you're talking about of damage being done. That's the way I think we kind of pitch it to the commissions, and then see what they rebuttal with, and then you try to come back with another answer. It's going to be a long process.
Yeah, I think. Oh, for sure, it's a long
process.
But I mean, I've actually had quite a bit of success at this point in time. And the way I see this, it's kind of like the way that things can exist. You play college ball, there's different there's rule sets, like in college football versus NFL. 1 foot in bounds versus 2 feet in bounds. Or the CFL, you can motion towards the line of scrimmage, but you can't in the NFL. And so these are both football. Both of them are games of football. But they have, the CFL has a 20-yard deep end zone. It has a 55-yard line. Like, it's the same game, but it's different. And similarly, it's the same game, but it's different. And so, that's the way I see it. During my professional career, I fought in the dark ages of MMA. My first fight was in 1998. There weren't athletic commissions that existed regulating MMA at the time. So you would go to one state that required that where you were allowed to elbow on the ground, and you would go to another state where you weren't. Or you would go to one state where you could, and the rules were like, and on the fly, we were just kind of like,
Rich.
Now, I don't think that's the smartest thing to do.
Rich, I had my first fight at the end of 97, and I got to be honest, we showed up and we made the rules. Okay, knees on the down, yes. Okay, elbows, no elbows. Okay, like, we made the rules as we went. Like, when we showed up, you both weighed in and you said, these are the rules, and the person there said, okay.
We fought. We had one of the fights. Remember the old karate style cotton gloves?
Yes, yeah.
The ones you wear like a point tournament.
Yeah.
The white cotton gloves. Yeah.
With like a pigeon toe finger. It was like a pigeon toe. Like 2 fingers went in one and 2 fingers went in the other. It looked like a ninja shoe.
Yeah, exactly.
It was the Star Trek
Yes,
version.
it was. It was Nanu. Remember Nanu? Mork and Mindy?
Yeah.
Mork and Mindy. The millennials watching the show, they're not going to get that.
They have no idea what we're talking about.
We just age ourselves.
Yeah, it's funny because at the time, Randy Couture was the one that he would get pissed off at me because we changed the rules almost every show in the beginning. So he started at UFC 13, and when he went to UFC 15, there was a couple different rules that were in place. And then he went from UFC 15 to UFC, I think it was Japan, and it was another rule in place. And he's like, God damn it, John. He says, at least call me and tell me what these fucking rules are so I can practice for them. And it's like, I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah. But I mean, that whole process, I think that that that's what ends up having to happen. And one is kind of a disruptor to the market right now, coming into the U.S. with a different mindset on this thing. And much like the UFC at that time, like had there not been rule changes in this refining of resharpening the sword each time. And we should always be doing that. Like, I think that the entire industry at this point in time should really be looking at, for example, hydration protocols. They don't need to copy ones, but I think that this weigh-in process that we go through, we're just at a point where we've seen enough fighters that have collapsed on scales and everything else, where it's something that the powers that be in all organizations should be considering. And it's a difficult thing to change. Like the mindset and philosophy of the fighters is not an easy thing to change.
All right, I got to. If you're bringing up the hydration thing, there are people that talk about one's hydration testing, and they say we cheat at it all the time, and that's nothing against ones, because people cheat at everything.
It's the same thing that Josh just said. I don't know how they would be able to cheat when you. Like, I guess you could, like, there are ways to water load and whatnot. I've not tried it myself, and you can water load and whatnot, but it still has to not, like, it's at least a step in the right direction. And maybe one system isn't the perfect system. Maybe it is. I don't know. But it's like, if it's not the perfect system, it's at least a step in the right direction where other people could say, okay, well, let's look at what they're doing and maybe let's try to do something similar, improve upon it or whatever. And that be, at least an example of something that goes in the right direction.
Why do you think other organizations are shy away from this type of thing?
I just think that it's part of the culture, man. It's, going back to the philosophy of a fighter, even myself, the whole time that I was fighting, if I could weigh in I would typically weigh in at 85 and then come back and be fighting somewhere right under 205. And in my mind, if I was weighing like 204 and my opponent weighed 201, I was like, gosh, I got an advantage here. Like, that was my mindset. I never thought that way in the gym on a Tuesday night, but you can't, it's like nearly impossible to get that out of a fighter's head. Like, they just think that way. And so it's just part of the culture. It's been that way since, I won't say since day one, but I can't remember when weight cutting started happening in boxing or whatever, but it's been that way for so long that the thought of challenging the system is kind of, and the weigh-ins themselves become their own little spectacle. I mean, to this day, I think it's crazy that 10,000 people would show up to an arena to watch me strip down to my underwear and step on a scale. Like, think about it. I don't know. I'm going to do this. I step on the scale. I do this.
You and Josh, a lot of people are going to go there to watch you guys do this stuff.
I can understand Josh. I can understand why people would show up to watch Josh strip down in his underwear. But, like, even me, I started wearing superhero underwear and everything else just to make it a bit more interesting, I'm baffled by it.
I mean, I look at it as it's part of the, like you said, it's part of the culture, but people have to remember that this culture, a lot of the people that are ingrained in it is wrestlers. And this is what we've done since we were kids. I mean, I came up wrestled when I was 3, started cutting weight when I was probably close to about 12, and you develop a system. And DC and I used to talk about it a lot. I felt like I wasn't ready to fight until I made my weight. It was a mental switch of, I did everything I was supposed to do. I'm ready to fight.
When I moved up to 205, for example, and I fought Forrest, I was in that camp. I think the heaviest I got was like 212, 213. And I got sick 2 weeks before the fight because I was actually helping this lady got stuck in the snow, and I was crawling under her car and dragging her out of the snow. It's like I think back and I'm like, how stupid. But anyway, I ended up getting sick and I lost a little bit of weight. And I think like I showed up fight week like around 208 or 209, like under 210. And I cut weight for that fight. And basically walked into the ring at like 207, 208. Like Forrest walked in at like 240,
235.
Yeah. And I'm not joking when I say this. I remember when we squared off at the weigh-ins, like you must put in a significant amount of spine, like fluid back in your spine, because when we squared off in the octagon, I looked up at him and I was like, Lord of mercy, you just grew 3 inches since yesterday. I mean, I'm not kidding. And so, that was difficult for me because I had given up, basically 30 pounds of weight in that match. And so that is obviously an advantage to one athlete. But that whole idea of I need to make weight, and me fighting at 205, that wasn't the only fight that I took back at either a catch weight of 95 or 205. But when I was making weight at either of those weights, I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything this fight camp. Like I need to be doing something, you know?
I'm going to switch directions a little bit, but more back to one is you guys have implemented,
down goes Franklin. Down goes
Franklin.
Never. No, he's back.
He's back up. He didn't take the
Not
same
only you
hit.
guys brought in the Muay Thai with the MMA gloves and the boxing with special rules with the MMA gloves, but you've also brought in the grappling portion of it, and I really love it because I'm good friends with Ty and Cade, fantastic grapplers, young. I feel like they're the next step of the evolution of grappling. But can you talk to me about the rules about this? Because I feel like this has a tendency to end up looking like some of the old school jiu-jitsu matches where they just lay on each other and the ADCC rules. Sometimes they favor, like nothing really goes on for a certain minute or whatever it is. These type of issues I've noticed with Ty and Cade, they don't grapple that way. They don't train that way. And the grappling has been so fantastic, except for when I think it was Ty, Cade against De Ridder. We had that problem with How do we stop from that happening?
John and I were talking about it. Yeah, I think my guess is probably that there's going to be an evolution in the rule set at some point in time, much like what we were just talking about in the early 2000s and John talking to Randy about how the rules are changing all the time. Like I think that they'll have to go back into the rule set and find ways of making this so that it continues pushing the action. Obviously, we're trying to bring grappling to the mainstream audience. And so, the idea of catches and only earning catches and not points on different positions was the idea of trying to push the action for finishes. So that is the intent of the rule set. That's why we eliminated the butt drop and the butt scoot unless you're actually engaging offensively, so that we didn't get into these, matches where people were just scooting around, like really trying to eliminate the dead spaces. John and I were talking about it at the top of the show before we came on about, implementing like a yellow card system for stalling purposes and things like that, because as he saw it, like De Ridder, for example, was fighting very defensively on his feet, not really doing much offensively for the takedown, which forced a lot of the action in Ty's court. And Ty was pressing the action as best he could, but really just couldn't get a takedown until towards the end of the match was able to almost like sacrifice himself into a bad position that could have ended up costing them the match. But I mean, these guys, it's like they want to put on a good show before they're going to put it all out there, both him and Cade. So, I think there'll be some iterations of the rule set as we move on, but that's a Matt Hume
Could
thing.
we potentially see some sort of like a combat jiu-jitsu where you'll see some strikes now involve open hand evolution that way, or is it going to be strictly just kept to being a jiu-jitsu base?
I mean, when we talk about potential, I guess really anything is possible. But and by me saying this, I'm in no way, shape, or form speaking on knowledge that I have inside the company. But I mean, I could see. My guess is that I could see some potential combat jiu-jitsu matches. I don't know if the entire BJJ, like the grappling matches, the submission grappling matches that we have would move that direction, because we really are trying to appeal to that grappling world. And I don't think that has the same appeal to them, but I mean, who knows? So I don't see the whole thing going that direction, but I could see some specialty matches here and there. Mikey, for example, Mikey's talked about doing MMA before.
Yeah, you see Ty and Cade. Yeah, you see Ty and Cade training. They're actually training it quite frequently. Yeah. Like they were at Ruka for a while, training it there, and then I see them train on their own.
But I think, I mean, for sure, Ty and Cade would be open to a combat grappling match. But I think even Mikey would be, for example. So I mean, it is possible. I wouldn't be shocked. I would be like, what?
All right, on November 3rd here in the States, November 4th in Thailand, you have one championship with a big-time Muay Thai match. Jonathan Haggerty against Fabricio Andrade. Is that one? That is for Muay Thai, right?
It is. It's no. This one's kickboxing.
Kickboxing. Okay.
This one's kickboxing. So Haggerty is this is the bantamweight title for them. And then
the bantamweight or featherweight?
Bantam.
Okay.
Fabricio's our bantamweight MMA champ. He had beaten John Lineker. I don't know if you guys had seen that match.
Yes, I did.
Great match. But his background actually is in Muay Thai prior to competing in MMA. So this is really going to be an interesting matchup because we got two very high-level strikers here.
One of the things that when we talk about all these different things, you do have this match, and that's going to be with the 4-ounce gloves, right?
No, this one will be the big gloves.
Oh, this was a bit. See, I never know the difference. I don't know what it is.
Kickboxing, yeah, I know.
So
kickboxing is the big gloves.
Kickboxing is big gloves. Muay Thai is 4-ounce.
Yes, correct.
Okay, at least I know now.
Which is interesting to me because I'll tell you what, man. Just side note on guys, just so you know, my phone is down to 10%. Like this video is really draining it, and so I probably have about, I'm guessing maybe 7 or 8 minutes left.
Let's go
before this thing dies. Okay, so yeah, it's interesting with these two fighters because both Haggerty and Andrade, they have backgrounds in Muay Thai, and one of the tools that Haggerty is most known for is his elbows. I mean, he throws this like chopping front,
straight down the pipe,
right, and he closes the distance with this thing like it's a jab. So I mean that's not his only tool, but like when I first heard this matchup, I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, it's kickboxing, and then I'm like, oh, well, this actually poses a different kind of problem and puzzle for both of these guys because the way that Haggerty works, like his kicks into his game and everything, this is going to be a fun one to watch. So, and I'll tell you, man, Fabricio right now, like his confidence is unshaken. And he's tough, man. He put on a great show against Lineker, and he took some heavy shots from Lineker.
He picked him apart.
But I mean, you're talking. This is Hands of Stone, 4-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
And if Hands of Stone couldn't put you down, how is Haggerty with some pillows on his hand? That's what I call him when you fight MMA. Yeah. With some pillows on his hand, going to be able to put Andrade down. So this is going to be, to me, this is going to be a fun one to watch. I think.
What's your take on the Tyrul Otolo and Magomed Abu Qadarov?
Abdul Qadarov. So I've watched Magomedov grapple. Obviously, I've seen Ty grapple. So very familiar with his style. They're both very aggressive. Stylistically, they're kind of similar. So I think that this is going to be a match where they really engage. I don't think there's going to be much of a feeling out process. I don't think we're going to have problems with the Renier de Ritter, Ty Rotolo, hand fighting, defensive stuff. Yeah. I think that this one's going to get into the mix of it really quickly. My gut right away is that, like, I know that Magomedov has a background in Sambo, but he's also an ADCC European champ.
He's a very good wrestler.
This isn't the typical. But the problem is, man, is like you can be a great wrestler, but you put a guy like Ty on the ground, he's automatically looking for darces and buggy chokes from the bottom. Like just because you could put someone on their back, and now you're not scoring points for it. In one championship's rule set, you got to be able to put them there, and then you got to be able to pass guard or land in a superior position, and that's just not easy to do without leaving something hanging that he's going to grab hold of. So it's a tricky game, obviously.
Got it. I mean,
all right, we're gonna end this thing as quick as we can since your phone is going to go away. Is there anything that you want to bring up about one championship that's coming up that people need to be aware of?
I would just say like this card. I'll say this about this card. There's some other really good fights on this card. Like I'm looking forward to the Sinsima Klinmi matchup, the rematch with him and Leon Nolan, and then I'm actually excited to see Kangji Wong back on the card again. He had great knockout against Amir Ali Akbari, and I think that he's going to be a fun one to watch. He's a guy that's definitely underrated. In that weight class, and then obviously we got Supergirl back on the card, but the one I'm really excited about on this one, and it's the opener, is the Jeremy Miata Lito Adewong match, because Lito came from the One Warrior series, and he was one of the guys that I picked to be like, I really saw him going places, and this is a rematch between these two guys. Lito stepped back, I think it was the second round in their last match. He stepped back, and I think his ACL actually tore. He tore his ACL, and it was just a good match between the two of them. So I mean, this is going to be a good opener for this one in MMA as well. So it's really put together a really, really good card for this November 4th show. There's little part of me that's happy that I don't have to get 33 hours on a plane on the other side of the planet. But there's that other part of me that's sad that I'm not going to be calling some of these matches.
All right, well then, you got to tell everyone how to watch it, what time to watch it here in the States.
And tell them when's the next time that Rodtang is fighting, because he is absolutely a blast to watch.
When? Hold on. I'll look to see when the next time Rodtang is fighting. But no, this match is November 3rd, Prime Video in the North America, so States and Canada, and it goes live at 7:30 p.m.
But it's in Colorado, correct?
Yep.
No.
This one broadcasts from Bangkok.
Okay.
Have you not been listening?
You were bouncing around so much I couldn't keep up.
That must be it.
No, we'll be back in the States next year.
Okay, perfect.
Sounds good. Hey, Rich, just want to tell you, hey, you have been an incredible ambassador for the sport. Thank you so much for everything you've done. I am so proud of your success with ONE FC. Continue on, my man, and thank you for coming on the Weighing In podcast.
Well, let me just say this. I was supposed to be in transit tonight on some travel. I pushed that travel back, John, just so I could be on this show, and it's truly a pleasure and an honor to be on here with two guys that I've personally worked with in my past in different capacities, but two definite gentlemen of the sport. Thanks for having me, man.
Always hit us up anytime. We'd love to have you on anytime.
Well, I want to tell Rich, thank you very much for your time, sir. I am proud of what you've done and continue to fight the good fight for ONE Championship. It's a great organization, and we love the fights that are coming out of there. Josh, you guys kind of look the same, man.
Shit, he's a good-looking dude, man. I got to start taking care.
Ooh, there it is.
I got to start taking care of my body a little bit better, though, like him. This guy's fucking still ripped. This guy was doing shit.
He's always been.
We were at the Gold's Gym in the Manila when I was working for them. He was doing shit on the bars, and I'm like, what in the... And this was the time when muscle-ups were kind of first coming around. Everyone was talking about doing muscle-ups on the bars. Yeah. And he was the guy that he was so adamant about being able to do one. And I saw him, the 3 times we were at the gym for that trip. He was in there. He's like, he could only get like 1.5 or like a half of one, and then it went to 1, and he was working at it. I wanted to ask him about it there in the interview. I never did, and we've also had some fun out on the town and a couple little things that we've worked through together.
So what happened in Beijing, mister?
Can't tell. I gotta let.
What do you mean can't do?
It's not my space to tell you, but like Rich said, I had his back. That's all that mattered. So we had a good time. It was a good time, and it's been, man, I've traveled all around with that guy. We were in Beijing. We were in where else? We were Beijing, Singapore, Manila. Where else did we go? I think Kuala Lumpur. We were in Kuala Lumpur too. I think we were somewhere. There was another spot. I was in Singapore with him twice though. Great time, man. Had a great time with him. Good stuff. Let's pull up some of this stuff. This DC conversation. Yep. DC on Islam. You want me to read it to you there, Dave?
Yeah, I can send it over. Sorry,
Okay.
I didn't have that sent over.
It says, DC says, there's work to be done for Islam Makhachev to be considered the greatest fighter of all time. But what can't be denied is that he is now the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And why? Because of because of the person that he just beat and the fashion in which he beat him. It's unreal. John, what's your take on that?
I hate the pound for pound. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
It's just let's be honest. I would give it to him as far as he's been active, he's been fighting, and he's absolutely one of the best fighters in the world. But how do you not say that John Jones, who is undefeated in all championship fights, and just won the heavyweight champ? How do you say that he's not? How do you say that DJ still fighting over at ONE? How do you say that he's not the pound for pound? A guy at 125 pounds, yeah, he's been beat, but he got beat by bigger people and stuff. It's like, how do you say that Volkanovski is still not? It's just impossible to say.
Yeah. I would agree.
Too many what ifs.
Look, everyone knows, obviously, I'm a homer for my boy Islam, and great performance. I've said this a couple times, like, I can't take something away from somebody when they haven't lost anything. I can't take away the pound for pound from John Jones when he hasn't lost.
No, it's impossible.
And I have made the argument several times that he beat Shogun kind of on the way out. Shogun was kind of on the way out. He's beat some guys that were legends. I'm not knocking their careers, obviously I'm not. But he's beat them kind of on the later end of their career. That doesn't make him not the best. That's the thing. It still doesn't make him not the best. Now he's also had some issues, with the USADA stuff. That's still, like, I sent him a message on Instagram one time because he was talking about how AKA fighters hate him. And I was like, no, John, we don't hate you. We just hate the fact that you wasted your God-given talent and cheated. That's why. When you really, in reality, he never needed to. He's gifted. The guy's gifted.
Yeah.
He's blessed, whether it's, athletically or just mind mentality, whatever it is. He's got the full package. I'm not going to take anything away from my boy Islam, though. He deserves to be at number 2. I would pitch an argument for him to be number 1, but I can't do that right now because John hasn't lost anything. I mean, going up to heavyweight, taking those years off, going up to heavyweight and having a dominant performance over someone who just fought for the title. And I don't think he's not going to have. I think he's going to have another dominant performance with Stipe. I think it might be a little bit tougher of a fight, but I think at the age of which Stipe is, John, and the way that he is able to use his mind and his athleticism to his advantage and his skill level and all these things, his fight IQ, I should just wrap it up in that. He's another level. He's another level right now. And now, if they would have fought, I don't know, 5 years ago,
The 5 year may have been a different story.
Maybe a different story, exactly.
Yeah,
but I can't take one spot away, and no matter how much he's my boy. But I look at and he's the clear cut number 2. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
I'll
give him to him.
Nothing but love for him. What else did I send you? I sent you over something.
All right,
else.
what do you want? The John's one, the tennis one?
Yeah, you gotta love that one.
No.
Right,
I want the Bud Light one.
Oh my God.
Bud Light one.
I want the Bud Light one.
Oh, jeez. Josh is
Bud
going
Light.
rogue. Josh is going rogue.
I'm not going rogue. I'm just making you do your job.
Are you gonna drink Bud Light?
No, I'm not going
Josh
to
and
drink
Bud
Bud Light.
Light.
This has nothing to do with Bud Light. I wanted to bring some. I wanted to bring something maybe different in the way that John thinks and maybe Dave thinks. UFC and Bud Light announced record-breaking sponsorship deal. I feel we are very aligned when it comes to our core values.
Who said that?
I would imagine it's probably the Bud Light. Who did say that?
I don't know.
Here, the guy here. The report also indicates more year deal between UFC and Bud Light. Bud Light, let's see.
Oh no, it's Dana White.
Well, good for him. John, I look at this. I look at it this way. I think
Modelo's gone.
I don't like this cancer bullshit, this cancer culture bullshit. It's fucking ridiculous. Now, look, if you don't like something, don't buy it, don't drink it, don't eat it, whatever it is. I'm get that. But the way that it is being pushed on everybody not to like it, no, you're not cool. I feel like that's just bullshit. Like, these companies are going to make their decisions. They fucked up. They know they fucked up. They took a huge, huge loss. And the American people or the consumer made them pay for it. They have decided to come out now and just jump on what sport would bring them the most notoriety, to get them back aligned with whatever who their consumer is. And their consumer is
Their
people
core
that
consumer?
Yeah, their core consumer is people that sit around and watch UFC. 19 to 35, 38, 39, people that actually work for a living. And I think somewhere along the line, they lost that. I'm not ready to write them up. I don't drink Bud Light. I never have.
No,
I never have actually even before this whole thing happened, I made fun of my cousin who that's all he does drink. But I'm not in support of any of this cancel culture bullshit. I don't care what it is at all. It's a very, it's a slippery slope. It's disgusting to think like you could put people, their careers could be ruined, their lives could be ruined. We have seen the negative effects on children. John, we had this conversation about children, the negative effects on children because their parents' lives have been ruined because of things like this. I'm not okay with that.
This is the biggest problem I have. I had friends who work for distributing companies, and they distributed Bud Light. They had nothing to do with what Bud Light decided to do with, a certain, influencer or anything like that. But it affected them greatly. It affected their livelihood. It affected their families. And it's because, as you say, I don't buy into cancel culture for anything. Look, if you're going to have a different viewpoint than me, that's fine. I can talk to you about it. It's when you can't talk to me about your side, that's when you're starting to lose perspective in what you're doing, because you should always be able to have a conversation. There's always that you may not in the end agree with each other, and that's okay. But if I look at it this way, if the UFC, has Bud Light as one of their sponsorship deals, and it's the biggest one they've ever had, congratulations to the UFC. Congratulations to Bud Light. And I say bring Brock Lesnar back because he'll drink a Coors Light. No, just kidding. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, that was great. I'm going to have a Coors Light and jump on my mama, right?
That's so great. That was great.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
He did have a Bud Light at the at the media conference. So,
I just wanted to touch on that. I would like if we could maybe start just considering looking past.
The part that cracks me up is we feel like we're very aligned when it comes to our core values. When has Dana been aligned in core values with anybody? Come on.
All right, well, hey,
I love it.
That's gonna wrap up that Bud Light conversation. We're not gonna get too much into it, but like I said, I just wanted to bring that a little bit of a mention to it. That is, I'm happy for them. They got a good deal. Hopefully, some of that will trickle down to the fighters.
Phenomenal deal.
Hopefully, some of that will trickle down to some of the fighters.
Okay, now you just
I lost you. We've got two videos that I wanted to show you guys. John sent one over, and I sent one over. Start with the baseball one.
All right. So I'll let me just get audio here for you guys.
What have you been doing the whole time we've been talking? How is this not lined up yet?
Announcing the last at-bat of their father, and he cranks one out of the park. He is retiring. You got to talk about a feel-good moment. Look at the elation on that man as his kids announced his name over the PA system. His last at-bat as a professional athlete for the Oakland A's. That's awesome.
That's fantastic, man.
And look at his teammates.
That's fantastic.
Look at how his teammates know what that feels like for him and how happy they are for him. This is sport. And this is what people that have never ever been part of this are missing.
Yeah.
Because anybody that's been part of athletics knows how you care so much for someone on your team. That was awesome.
That was awesome. Almost brought me to tears. Got some dust in my eye.
It's a bug flu.
Yeah, I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, especially his kids being able to announce his last at bat. That's pretty damn awesome.
That is great.
I sent the video over to Dave, and
You ready for it?
Yeah, I'm ready for it. I want it to all make sense. Here we are in Dagestan, and here are kids wrestling. But I want you guys to take a look. There's the wrestling mat, and there's the wedding.
There's the wedding. That's awesome.
I don't know if this is a wedding or not. It seems like like a very big family dinner. But in this big family dinner in this hall, they have a wrestling mat set up on the outside, and there's just all kids. And I actually sent this over to Habib, and I sent it over to Umar, and I said,
just Dagestan.
And I said, it all makes sense. And they both sent me back, this is Dagestan, brother. Of course. So I just, like I said, this is the level of commitment that you see from other countries, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Dagestan, to their kids being physically active, to being out there, whether it's playing with each other. And I don't see kids on iPads in this situation. Maybe they are in there. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm missing them, but I don't see them. I don't see them at the tables. I see them on the mat. And I'm not saying every kid needs to be a wrestler, but I mean, having your kids physically active with amongst other kids, absolutely amazing. I can see this. I can see why they are the way they are. So good stuff. I thought it was a fun little video to show because it made me laugh. Dave, what you got? You had something to say?
I was gonna say we do it without the mats over here.
You do it without the mats?
Yeah, we just did this without the mats.
Yeah. See, they're trying to protect their
we
kids.
We just did the same thing without the mats.
Who's we?
So our kids can really get rough and get tough.
It's funny because you say that. But the thing with mats though is you can actually take more damage and still keep going. It's no different than there's the e-bikes. People ride electric bikes, right? And I was like, man, you guys are a bunch of sissies riding these e-bikes up the hill.
Smart. You go farther.
Because you can ride for 3/4 of the day versus, if I ride without an e-bike, I don't have an e-bike.
3/4 of the day?
3/4 of the day, buddy. You can ride for like 8-9 hours easily. Yeah. Easily. You can
That's
ride.
not 3/4 of the day.
Well, I mean, if the sun goes down, by the way. Do you know that? So You don't want to get lost up there as the sun starts to go down. But you
Question: why are you arguing?
I
with
don't
him?
know. This guy's never done anything physically active. This guy has no idea of combat sports, and I can't believe it. John, you're right. You know what, John? Take us away, man. Just fucking Dave pissed me off. I'm done with you.
For everyone out there that's on an electric bike, I want you to run over Podcast Dave for me. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed Rich Franklin, and we will see you.